It's time for Windows Weekly. Paul Thurrott's here. Richard Campbell's here. We got roadmaps to talk about. The Windows 11 LTSC, long awaited, is finally here. We'll talk about the weekday preview updates. And now something new, the CFRs, Controlled Feature Rollouts. Surface Duo, what happened to it? And yes, Microsoft still working to get approval on that Activision deal. Signs yet another 10-year Xbox deal. All that and a whole lot more coming up next. It's time for Windows Weekly.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is Windows Weekly with Paul Thurrott and Richard Campbell, episode 827, recorded Wednesday, May 3rd, 2023. It makes me fight. This episode of Windows Weekly is brought to you by Melissa. More than 10,000 clients worldwide rely on Melissa for full-spectrum data quality and ID verification software. Make sure your customer contacts data is up to date. Get started today with 1,000 records cleaned for free at melissa.com/twits. It's time for Windows Weekly, the show where we talk about the latest news from Microsoft with Mr. Paul Thurrott, Thurrott.com.
Hello, Leo.
Get the cup, and you'll never...
So satisfying.
Never be something again. Hello, Paul. Also here, still briefly, in his home in beautiful Coquitlam, British Columbia, Mr. Richard Campbell of Run As Radio fame. Hello, Richard.
The peaceful times at home are coming to an end. It'll be a European run.
I hear you're going to the Low Country.
I am, yeah. Gonna do a little run across the Benelux and be back in a couple of weeks. But
run across the Benelux, which is, by the way, the best way to do it.
Like the Germans in 1940.
Yeah.
Racing across the lowlands.
Oh, wow.
And like the Germans, that's not your final stop.
It's called
Campbell just Krieg. Passing through.
No, enough.
Sorry.
Let's.
I love that. I love that area. I love all of
no,
that.
it is. It's great. Yeah. How's your Flemish?
That's a good. Yeah. But have I been invited to two different dinners primarily because I'm going to be picking the wine? Yes, I have.
Nice.
You'll pick the wine, right? Yeah, I'll pick the wine.
Oh, so you have wine expertise as well. I did not know that.
No, I'm professional alcoholic.
Expert, not professional. Expert.
No, professional as that I have been paid to drink in bars. That's when I consider myself a professional.
There you go.
Once the conference said, "Listen, we're paying you. We need you to go to this bar, select whiskey for the speakers, and tell stories."
Wow,
I'm a professional alcoholic.
That makes
when I cross the line.
Yeah,
I like it.
Wow. Well, let's talk about whatever's on your mind. I guess it looks like roadmaps are on your mind, and not roadmaps of Benelux.
No.
Your Thompson's Guide to Windows.
Well, yeah, right. The Michelin Guide to Eastern Germany or East Germany or whatever. So we have been sort of speculating about this for a while, but Microsoft finally put out a roadmap this past week where they discussed kind of the end, how Windows 10 winds down and also how Windows 11 kind of winds up, if you will, right? So the thing we had talked about was that Microsoft has never released an LTSC version of Windows 11. That's the long-term servicing channel version. Technically, LTSC is actually for kind of what Microsoft calls specialty devices, meaning PCs that maybe are in medical or in some location where they literally don't want to ever be updated. But I think a lot of enterprises just like to use LTSC, just like get a version on they don't have to update.
LTSC is an excuse to not migrate, right?
Yeah.
I'm not going to talk about I'm not going to concern myself with a product till I know I can stand it for an extended period of time. And I don't know why you went with PCs. Like it's ATMs you're talking about. That's although that's still XP, but a Windows 11 version of ATM would be hilarious.
Well, yeah. So actually, I have to say I'm a little vague on some stuff with LTSC because there are, in some ways, three different versions. There are versions that are supported for 5 years. There are versions that are supported for 10 years. And then there are IoT versions, which I believe are also supported for 10 years. And I don't know if the ATM use case is IoT or just standard Windows 11?
No, it predates all of that, really.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, they're making this stuff as they go along. I think it's more what will the customer tolerate? And
Yeah.
they keep trying to make it a shorter amount of time. And there's a good case for that, right? Like
Right.
these
Well,
things do need to be updated. There are vulnerabilities,
yeah.
but nobody wants it. You know,
We,
it's like-
there's an ongoing discussion that we've been having here that I have on my site that we're going to have here yet again today, which is about that so delicate balance between Microsoft wanting to update your computer all of the time and some people, and certainly most companies, wanting to never update their computer. And this is kind of we'll talk about this in a little while, but yes, I was a little worried. Well, worried is the wrong term. I was wondering what they were going to do about LTSC. Were they going to try to get rid of this for Windows 11? And so the answer is no.
I began to wonder if they were going to try this time and then decided not to.
Yeah.
Like,
well, they might just say, for Windows 11, it's 5 years, right? And we'll see.
Yeah.
There are no details about it. We just know that it's going to arrive in the second half of 2024, meaning it will be 24 H2. I believe there were 2 LTSC versions of Windows 10 currently supported, 2019 and 2022, probably.
And the fact that you just said those words speaks volumes of what went wrong with the whole Windows 10 is the last version of Windows thing, right?
Yes.
You're referring to 2 versions of Windows 10.
Well, that's the irony / hypocrisy of Windows 10. We want to have as few versions of Windows supported in the market at one time, and we have created a situation where we have the most ever.
The most number. Well, and at the same time, you also have that force of how do I shake up the dev team inside of Windows to get with these more fast moving practices that they just had never needed to do before.
Yep.
Yeah. This is part of our lives of being affected by the politics inside of Microsoft showing up in this product that we all ultimately depend on.
That's right. Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, we've talked about this before, but one of the big things that switched over the Windows 10 life cycle was this notion of pulling developer APIs out of Windows and making them just support all supported versions of Windows, right? This is the Windows App SDK stuff.
Well, and I think that was a revelation inside of Microsoft too, because up until then, you only put stuff into Windows. You never took it out.
Right. Right. But it was a byproduct of the Windows as a service thing that I think no one saw coming, or at least no one important enough to make a decision. And when that situation arrived that we just described, where they had more supported versions of Windows in the market than ever before, the bell went off and they kind of,
you've done the opposite of what you intended to do, and you frustrated your customers. They frustrated more people than ever before. The devs were annoyed because they couldn't get the version they needed to run their apps. The IT people were annoyed because why are the devs wanting us to update the OS? The users annoyed because I saw this feature on this guy's machine, but not on that guy's machine, right? And let's not even talk about the search pill. Like,
we are going to talk about the search bill. That's the next big topic. It's coming up again. You thought we were done.
We're going to let it go. But herein lies why do people avoid updating Windows? Because sometimes the Windows guys go off the rails and do trivial things with update instead of what they were supposed to do, which is keep our machines safe. So, I wonder why we're irritable.
Well, if you were irritated by the fact that your computer could not be upgraded to Windows 11, we have some good news for you, because Microsoft is no longer going to ship updates to Windows 10. Windows 10 version 22H2 is going to be the version they ride out into the sunset, allegedly until October 2025. And what they promised is that we will, of course, deliver security updates every month, but we're not going to do any more feature updates. And I have to believe there was a huge part of the population out there, especially in the business side, that are saying, yeah, thank you. That's what we've been asking for the past 8 years.
Yes. So you're going to make Windows 10 correctly now? Hooray.
Yeah, right at the end. So I'm sure there are also some that went to Windows 11. They're saying, hold on one second. What are you doing?
Can I get
there?
what? I have what?
So the way the Microsoft blog post about this was kind of interesting. It's like, hey, you only have 2.5 years now before you have to switch over. You might want to start your migration hours. I think a lot of businesses are thinking, wait a minute, I could ride this out for 2.5 years.
Yeah, this is brilliant.
That sounds pretty good to me.
With a fairly good probability that you're going to extend the deadline anyway, because as you do with every popular version of Windows, because in the end, you guys may be, quote unquote, leading the parade, but mostly it's because you run in front of us and keep walking.
Right. Actually, you should turn around because the parade went left when you went right.
Yeah. And as they tend to do, right? I mean, you look at how long they extended 7, and 7 was good, but it ain't no 10. 10 is a very when you get over the madness of the versioning, 10's a very good version of Windows. And I see a lot of organizations going, yeah, we're not going anywhere. And you haven't impressed us with 11.
Right. Yeah. No, yeah, for sure. I mean, Microsoft, all these things are kind of help put the whole situation in perspective a little bit. You could also argue, well, Microsoft now has 2 years ish to get Windows 11 right. Not really. I mean, obviously, businesses that are going to make this migration need to get started on that at least a year ahead of time, depending on the size, et cetera. But man, this is them buying time.
A cynical man, and I don't know any in this room. A cynical man might say that most organizations will wait for Windows 12.
Yep. Right. Well, so that's the one thing they didn't discuss in this roadmap, right? So there's a lot of evidence that Windows 12 is coming. There's a lot of speculation about the timing to that, but I would imagine that 2024 is the time for that. 24 H2, I guess. So we'll see. I mean, they waited until the last minute to announce Windows 11. I have to think they're not going to wait that long on Windows 12. But if this really is the AI edition of Windows, as we kind of think of it, I think it would behoove them to start talking about it a little early. I wouldn't wait until next summer.
Well, and just again, I'm thinking the internal politics of Microsoft. If you don't get out the door with a version of Windows with your large language model features in it, M365 owns this. They're already talking about Copilot.
Sure.
And the longer that goes, the less your thing's going to matter. So, and apparently the directive came from Satya: "Thou shalt make AI products in each of the stacks."
Oh yeah, right? Yeah. This is in the same way that "thou shalt make your product make sense in the cloud."
Yeah,
was the previous edict. I mean, yes, 100%. This is the goal move.
It's got to be soon. And I'm just taking a fly here, saying we're going to get an 18 to 24 month extension on retirement of 10, as we have with, again, popular versions of Windows. And even then, it'll be a $50 fee to stay in support for a year, the first year out.
Yep.
Boy, oh boy, you've given me all the reasons not to go to 11.
I wonder,
if we're going to make a jump, go to 12.
You have to think, I don't know what the timing is exactly, but let's say 1 year before the end of life, supposedly, of this product, they look at the numbers and say, we still have a lot of desktops sitting here on Windows 10 still. This roadmap that we just discussed is going to be the thing that makes that happen.
Yep.
It makes it much less of an important thing to move to Windows 11, knowing now that this thing is going to be stable.
Yeah,
the next 2.5 years, that doesn't make me want to leave. That makes me want to stay.
That makes me want to stay. And I have to. I mean, I've never been in the room for this. I don't know that it's even really true, but it's I can think of a half a dozen companies in this world that make a phone call to Microsoft and say, we're not going to be ready by 2025, and we need you guys to fix this.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, we'll see what they do. Microsoft can be curiously belligerent sometimes, but they did it for XP. They did it for 7.
No, they're like a female black bear. They'll charge you, but they always turn away at this last second.
Nice. That's something I hope to never experience.
It's a moment, I'll tell you.
I mean, I've been bullied by Microsoft on Twitter. I guess that's a little close to that.
The key is to make loud noises and make yourself bigger than Windows. And
you're totally right.
Yeah,
sure. And I find when the bear runs at you, not hard to make loud noises. You're highly motivated.
And whatever you do, don't run. Yeah.
No, don't run. Lean into it.
Yeah.
Look, he wants to play.
That's got to be hard. I saw a video on TikTok the other day of a family and a bear just kind of lumbering up behind them. And the kid at one point, little kid says, "When do we get to play dead?" And I thought, okay.
That could be coming quicker than you want.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
I wanted to ask you, and I don't see it in your notes, so maybe you don't think it's an important thing, but one of the rumors that came out this week was that Microsoft was hiring chip designers to work on, their version of an M1 or M2.
That I'm not sure about. When you were gone, we talked about Microsoft. There were two things that had come up. Microsoft is adding MPUs to their future Surface products.
I remember talking about that too. Yeah, of course.
Okay. And then Microsoft is designing chips in-house to use in their data centers for the cloud computing / AI.
So this story is looking.
No, I think this is just more recent.
More of that.
I think. Yeah. You got to remember, Microsoft actually licenses Snapdragon chipsets, and then I don't think they do much to them, honestly. They basically just rebrand them. This story, as I understand it, suggests that they want to do more than just that.
Yeah. I mean, it came from a site I'd never heard of called Windows Latest. I don't know if that's...
They're okay.
They're a thing. Okay.
Yeah.
They apparently found job listings suggesting Microsoft is in the market for a few key roles in silicon engineering to join its Microsoft Silicon team. The main hire being principal system on a chip silicon architect.
Yeah. So that suggests client side.
Responsible for building complex, this is a quote from the posting, state-of-the-art SoCs using leading silicon technology nodes, and will collaborate closely with internal customers and partners.
There's all this stuff that we speculate on when it comes to Surface, right? And some of that we speculate about has to do with ARM chips and that kind of stuff. And part of the reason is Surface isn't enormously successful, and we sort of wonder, is this something Microsoft wants to keep around? It was controversial when they came out with this product line, competing with their best partners, et cetera. There's little doubt that the Snapdragon work that was done for PCs has been disappointing to Microsoft so far.
The Qualcomm specific, locked in Qualcomm.
Yeah, and part of the speculation I mentioned earlier was around this notion of does Microsoft have an exclusive arrangement with Qualcomm for these chips? When they announced Windows and ARM for Windows 8, Windows RT, they were talking about multiple chipsets, and I think they just went with NVIDIA at the time, if I remember correctly. When they talked about the Windows 10 version of Windows and ARM, once again, the notion was we're going to expand this into other chipsets, and there have been companies, I don't know if it was MediaTek or some other company that showed interest in this, but nothing has come of it. And so people are like, well, maybe they have some kind of an exclusive arrangement. We've talked about the Nuvia acquisition and how that's going to impact Windows and ARM, and the expectation is that we'll learn more about those chipsets late this year. I don't know. I mean, Microsoft has their own chipsets. It's like Microsoft has a rebranded Qualcomm Snapdragon 8X, whatever they're called, chipset. Is it really any different? Does it make a difference? Has anyone ever used a Surface Pro 9 versus a whatever else and said, yes, this thing is 10 or even 15% faster or something? I don't know.
And I wouldn't say they've made their own chipsets up till now. They've taken existing chipsets and assembled them the way they want to.
Right.
It would be interesting if they did, because definitely we have the modern foundry system where you get to spec what's in the chip.
Yep.
Even if you're not actually cutting the silicon yourself.
Yeah. A lot of Apple's success with making chips has come about because there's a company that can build those things.
Right. The modern foundry system is what's made all
they're not building them. Right. So I guess if I could kind of summarize the issue I have with this, it's just that Surface is a brand. Surface is a product line, is a tiny, tiny percentage of PC sales. ARM-based chipsets that are used inside Surface PCs are themselves a tiny subset of what is a tiny subset. So it doesn't mean things don't change in the future, but I don't know. I'm not really sure. I would be less surprised if Microsoft left the industry than I would be if they dropped Snapdragon.
And maybe I'm jumping ahead in your list here, but they doubled down on the Surface brand this week.
Yes, in a way that I find alarming.
Whoa.
Well, it's weird. It's a weird one.
Should we save that for
let's say
their entire segment labeled Surface?
Yeah.
Okay. Got to have something in there. You might as well keep it.
No, yeah. We'll get to that. Okay. Anyway, sorry, I didn't. I
didn't mean to derail you, but I noticed it wasn't in the notes, and I was curious about it. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. It's. I think one of the things that's coming out of this AI phase that we're in right now is that the way for these platform makers to save money is to have their own chipsets.
Mm-hmm.
They can't rely on others for this.
Because you
And,
need the neural processing unit.
Yeah, you need to do that. You need your own. Google does it, Amazon does it, Microsoft's going to be doing it in the the data center side, and then Apple obviously has been pushing this pretty hard for several years now on iPhones.
Isn't it ironic because they have really no position in this whole AI chat GPT race?
But I think that might actually be why, because they understand how important it is. Apple is never going to be that trusted partner that others go to rely on for anything, let alone AI. But Apple, as that kind of insular company, sees how the world is going and says, well, we have to do this ourselves. And where is our strength? It's on the client.
What you haven't seen is a standard for an NPU.
Right.
Nobody's even offering one.
Right.
Like that's what's interesting. Like the competition is so fierce.
Yep.
That nobody's actually saying, oh, we should do a chip like this and we'll make it available to others. Like that, the person who does it, the one who says, I'm behind and not going to catch up. So I'm gonna try and get a standard.
Richard, I think you use a Pixel phone. I don't know which one you have. Do you have what's version? 6. So starting with the 6 and now with the 7 and soon with the 8, they have their own tensor chipset, right? And so this thing is kind of optimized for AI, machine learning tasks, and it's okay for other things. Like it's fine, but this is a phone that can heat up. It can't charge very quickly. I think that might have something to do with the chipset. That's just the direction they decided to go in. They're like, look, we're going to try to make this thing as helpful as possible with these kind of interactions that people have. But as a mainstream kind of normal processor, it's probably just kind of average. It's not like super high end or whatever. It's fine.
Yeah.
And that's one direction. And I guess that the bet they're making is that's what's going to matter to people, that we're going to,
I don't think this matters to customers at all. I mean, camera features are great. Detecting that you're doing astrometry, awesome. Like all of that is cool. But the problem you've got with the LLMs, with the chatbot situation here, is they're free. Yeah. And most people aren't going to pay for them. And they consume a lot of compute. And so it is in the vendor's interest to push the compute to the edge, not in the customer's interest.
Or to lower to lower the price of the stuff they are doing up in the cloud, which is what
which they're paying for, not us. Like, why are we going to care? The only way you're going to make us care is to construct features that only work with our new devices. And that's cool. We'll get to sell more devices. And there's Microsoft's problem. They don't care if they sell more devices, really. Right. Google only vaguely cares if they sell more devices.
Well, but this is why it's so important that NPUs come to the client regardless of Microsoft making their own PCs. That's not going to change anything. All of the computers that Dell and HP and Lenovo and whatever else sell have to have these chips for some version
so you'd
of Windows.
Think it'd be Microsoft that had declared the standard by now. Like that's the logical thing to do. You're the guys with the ecosystem, right? Like
yes. Well, that's okay. So that's tied to what I said earlier, where I think they need to come out a little earlier, a lot earlier this time, the normal schedule, 1 year in advance at least, and say, hey, this is a major push for Windows 12. It's going to be AI. MPU is paramount to this.
Yep.
Here's
a reference machine.
Here's the whole stack. Yes.
Yeah. So that better be this October.
It better be by this October. Yep.
Yeah. This October, they need to do that pitch. And now the vendors have the ecosystem has a year to build the machines that people will actually buy.
Yep. And by that point, those machines will be in market that have MPUs because it's already happening. It's just that it's just not everywhere.
Well, and clearly they've been working on this chip now for a year or two. The Apple guy's been on board since early last year.
Right.
So, I mean, that's enough time. There should be a chip.
That lawsuit was just dropped, by the way. That's also not in the notes, but Apple had a lawsuit against the guy who left to go to Nuvia, right?
You're never going to win those. All you're going to do is,
you want to sow, fear, pretty much.
Gerard Williams, I think his name was. Anyway, he countersued and the suit's been dropped.
and I'm pretty sure it was Microsoft Legal supporting all of that, as they do, and it has happened before, and likely happen again, and all of it is dumb. You don't get to not let a guy make a living,
especially in California, because hiring employees away from another company is actually protected in California.
Sure. So they call it right to work.
Right to work.
So,
well, that's another interpretation of right to work, but yes, that's right. Yeah. Right to poach, I think is
yeah.
RTP.
Like it. All right.
All right.
So,
all right. Yay.
Richard mentioned the search pill in my
Can't believe you're talking about
non-ending
this again.
quest for the truth. I have come up with various theories as to why Microsoft pushed the AI thing. As you recall, every week it seems like I have a new one. I've been really concerned about and really focused on how and when Microsoft updates Windows. It's interesting to me, right? And just at a really high level, the problem is easily stated. They said we're going to do one feature update a year, and they release multiple feature updates every month. So it's what they say, what they do. And the interesting thing is Microsoft over time has started coming out and explaining itself. It has talked about how, we changed the schedule for preview updates. We're going to make them now in week D, which is 2 weeks after week B and 2 weeks before the next week B being Patch Tuesday. So we get this preview update. If you want to go get it, you can. And if you don't want to go get it, that's fine. Wait 2 weeks, you'll get it with Patch Tuesday automatically.
You're getting it.
Yeah. Oh, no, they literally use, what do they call it? Mandatory. It's a mandatory update, right? So these are non-security updates, cumulative updates, they're features, right? And I think last week I discussed about how I went back and looked at it. And if you really look at it, what you'll find is that they've been doing this since September of last year. The only time they didn't release extra features in any month was in January. And that's only because December they take half the month off. And there was no week D that year, that month. So that was the only time they skipped new features. And Richard, you may remember this, I think because it was just as you were coming on the show, but back in November/December last year, Microsoft, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, popped this little search pill onto people's taskbars.
Well,
and the way they did it was,
them.
Thank you. The way they did it was so weird. And I was, of course, hot in the middle of writing the Windows 11 field guide, and I had just taken 1,100 screenshots of the taskbar, and the taskbar changed because now there's this new icon here. We talked about how there were feature regressions, blah, 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 whatever. But the thing that was weird about it, the thing that was stuck in my craw, was they had never tested this. This never went through the insider program. It just appeared out and stable one day, but not for everybody. And in my own situation where I had several laptops going at one time, I could see it appear on 2, but not on 5. And then next month it was 3 and not on 4. And then it took a really long time for it to kind of get rolled out everywhere. And I was just, it just didn't
you
make
were
sense.
uniquely positioned.
Yeah, to witness it.
You're clearly harnessing your OCD for the forces of good in terms of noticing the changes like that.
Yes.
And you're surrounded by an array of machines, so
That's
know the update cycle's wonky. Like,
Yep.
There's very few people in the place you are to make
That's
that
right.
happen.
Right. And, of course, the cynical view of what I do is people, all you do is complain. It's like, yeah, or maybe I'm just like a canary here and I'm witnessing something that is unusual. And I was trying to make sense of it,
Yeah. And I felt like it was an experiment the whole time, which happens, right? Like,
it doesn't just happen, Richard. It's a strategy, and it's called Controlled Feature Rollouts. It is literally a formal strategy that Microsoft employs to roll out.
It has an acronym now, so it must be real.
Well, they documented it. They talked about it. This is a thing. They're doing it. And that's what the search bill was. It was a CFR. They didn't say that, but it is.
It's implied.
No, it absolutely. When you read the way they describe how this will happen and compare it to the way we just described how the search bill happened, it's identical.
So do you think that the search bill was the beta of the CFR? That was their first test run?
I can't say that for sure, but it either was the first or it was one of the first.
I think you would have noticed if there'd been any others.
I think so too. That's why. Yeah, this one was very prominent. It was.
Well, it was in the middle of you capturing screenshots. So I feel your pain.
Well, I mean, I feel I pay attention regardless, but I feel like I would have noticed something like this, but this one was very obvious.
Yeah.
So here's what bugs me about this, other than the obvious. Microsoft has a program in place. In fact, just in January they expanded it. It's called the Windows Insider Program, and the Windows Insider Program, if used correctly, has 3 or 4 tiers where you can insert a new feature, go through the testing cycle on each channel, and then pop it out to stable at the end of the cycle. The search pill was an anomaly because it never went into the Windows Insider Program. It just hit stable. But this is, like I said, a strategy. They're doing this on purpose. They're purposefully not testing it with insiders, and they're pushing stuff out into stable. Now, the idea here is they roll it out like they roll out a major Windows feature update, capital F, capital U. In other words, they don't just, split it out to everyone. there's some algorithm that determines these computers it should work okay or whatever. Not that the search bill was a big deal, but the idea is it goes out to some subset and they gather feedback, by which I suspect they mean telemetry mostly, make sure it's working right. By the way, it wasn't working right. There was a feature regression, as we discussed, but whatever. And then they expand it over time. And if there are no major pushbacks, eventually it will hit the entire user base. And in the case of the search bill, I bet it wasn't until February. In fact, it's possible someone listening to this now will say, I never actually got that, or whatever. They eventually superseded it with another update. But this is so why would you do that? And they have not said explicitly, but it's hard not to think that there's something wrong with the insider program, that they're not getting the
we
level
know
of
there's
feedback
something wrong with the insider program. Like, it's obvious.
Yeah.
They made it too easy to sign up. They put no criteria on it. Most people put it on a tertiary machine. Right. And
That's true.
You're not getting good feedback. That's plain and simple.
And unfortunately, they've also made the program kind of crappy, right? So they've gone back on their promise about what these channels mean. They've done A/B testing in the beta channel. If I was in the beta channel and I was there very specifically because I'm going to be able to test this level of things, and now I'm not getting those features, you're kind of sucking the life out of it, right?
It's self-fulfilling, right?
Yeah.
And I think part of this is that the folks who set those programs up back in the day, they've all moved on. And there's new people in play. It's quite questionable whether they even agreed with the strategy in the first place. They may or may not know how to do certain things, much less what was necessarily promised.
Right.
And they're reinventing it bit by bit without causing a too big of a ruckus, right?
So
all you can do with the insiders is annoy them.
Right. Well, they've done a stellar job of that. So the three of us have all been around long enough to remember this. I feel like the people making the decisions at Microsoft might not remember this. Back in the 1990s, there was this notion of internet time, that Netscape had come out and they said, look, we need to ship fast. That's how we're going to get ahead in the market. Right. And we'll fix the problems later. And that's cute
because we can deliver it online.
Yeah. It's a cute thing to do for a little browser, 1,000 lines of code at the time or whatever it was, when you're doing this in a product that ships to hundreds of millions, possibly billions of people in stable, like normal people, I don't know. It seems like a dicey strategy to me.
Now, I mean, get into, and this also leads into your next point, where software is being built more reliably. Right. Yeah. These are not breaking change. This search pill may have been annoying, but at no point did Windows crash. You didn't VSOD on it.
That's true.
And search didn't even break. Right. These literally were just UI things.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. So I don't, I would say in our group here and, the people watching and listening to the show, obviously we're enthusiasts and we feel these things a little
but
more.
I think you're talking about Microsoft simplifying, where the update channel is the beta channel. And so when I'm wearing my IT hat, it's like, I use update server for a reason. I control what's coming.
Right. Well, so, and that's the thing. I actually, right. And to defend Microsoft somewhat, I would say, if you're going to do this kind of thing, at least you're doing it in a company that has two halves, an enterprise half and a consumer half. And you have a system in place for enterprises where they can block this kind of thing from happening.
Yep.
For some amount of time, right? And actually, in this exact case, I will say, it was superseded by an update that changed the search yet again, and it did fix those problems, right? And so they got it to where it needed to be in the first place. It took them 3-4 months, whatever.
You're just describing Windows 11 full on, right?
Yeah.
They took a whole bunch of stuff away, listened for how loud the screams were, and then just kept adding it back. Now we're back.
Yeah. And so for those businesses that blocked or blocking updates or whatever, this thing came out, was broken, was fixed, and then they updated, and why would they care? Right. And so maybe that's okay. And I had written something to that too. And I mean, as an individual using this product, it's fine. I think a lot of normal people, I always hold my wife up in this regard. Like, she had switched to Windows 11 at some point and I forgot about it. And then one day I said, hey, how's Windows 11 go? And she's like, what do you mean? I said, well, you asked me about it and you upgraded and everything. She goes, yeah. And I said, well, do you notice anything? She's like, what are you talking about? And I said,
it's an operating system. It's
she said it's a tool. I'm like, okay, I am also a tool. I don't know. These are the kind of things I think about. So I don't, maybe this is the right way to do it.
It's also the same way that people are like blind to cars, right?
Yes.
I get
yes.
in a box, it takes me where I want to go, I get out.
Right.
Right. You can talk about the styling on the rear quarter panel, but I really don't care.
Well, I'm a car fan, and so I will say in this apartment complex we live in, there are 7 parking spots, and 5 of those vehicles are almost always a Kia. And yeah, and I walk out to the car. One time we walked out of the car, and I walked by each car. I said Kia, 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 Subaru, Kia, and Stephanie's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Do we live in a Kia dealership?" And I don't think she would have noticed this.
No,
You know,
she
I
wouldn't have
don't
noticed, didn't care.
Yeah, didn't
Right.
care.
And you ask her about your operating system, same thing.
Same thing. Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
and as I remember my mother telling me I don't want Windows Vista. And I'm like, you're not qualified for an opinion. But it just showed how well the things had gone off the rails that the non-technical had an opinion about something.
Yes, Windows 8, same thing. I had,
Yeah.
in fact, the same friend we talked about, the friend earlier who had the iPod, he traded in for the Dell. That guy called me one day and said, "Hey, I just bought a new computer and it came with Windows 8." And he would never bother me about technical things, but
Right.
he said, "How do I put Windows 7 on this?" I was like,
How do I make it go away?
I don't know if you can do that, man.
Yeah. Why would you care?
Yep. Anyhow.
This ties into that story. We talked about this before we even started about Rust in a good way, because this is a maturation, an interesting idea of maturation of Windows. And Rasinovich was talking about this a year ago or more.
Right. And this is one of those times I kind of wish he was in this part of the company again a little bit,
Yeah, I don't even know what that guy does for a living anymore. I got him coming up on Run As in a month or so.
We'll find out what he does for a living though, because
I will. I'll ask him.
It will just be confusing, but yeah, I mean, this is Mark Rasinovich, for people who don't know. He's to me, his claim to fame was he wrote an article in Windows NT magazine back in 1996, probably, or 7, discussing how you could make one registry change and turn Windows NT Workstation into Windows NT Server.
Right.
And he and with David Solomon essentially kind of semi-reverse engineered the Windows kernel, the NT kernel, and sysinternals, WinInternals, etc. Was bought by Microsoft, came to Microsoft, a Microsoft fellow, I would imagine.
He's a tech fellow, yeah. Well,
tech fellow.
No, he's hit the point where now you just make your own titles.
Yeah.
So, I think CTO Azure at the moment, I think.
Yeah, he's a genius and he's a super nice guy. And
Without a doubt.
he used to be he was in Windows for several years and was doing, kind of low-end kernel work, blah, 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 whatever. But yeah, so what you're saying is sometime in the past year, he's been saying, hey, there's something called Rust. Let's start using it in the Windows kernel. Linux put their first bit of Rust, so to speak, into the 6.1 kernel back in, I don't know, February, March, something like that. And Microsoft was just had I think it was a security conference in Israel. And Vice President David Weston, who I was telling Rich, I have met this guy. Like I've 100% met this guy, and it's killing me. I'm really bad with this kind of name thing.
He's a 15-year veteran. He's been around a while.
Super nice
always
guy.
On the security side.
Yeah, and so he appeared, and as part of his talk, he said that yes, Microsoft is going to be adding Rust code to the Windows kernel. Now they're not going to rip and replace, it doesn't make. And he said this, look, it doesn't. We've got decades of code there. We're not going to.
Yeah.
You've got spend the next 7 years replacing it all with Rust.
I did a show where they talked about being able to use. They had to modify Git, make contributions to Git to be able to use Git as a repository for Windows.
Right.
Because it's 300 gigabytes of source code. Right.
Yep. Actually, I haven't looked into this yet. I'm probably going to write about this if I can find this. Yeah. Sudo and Su, right? Two of the two of the core Linux like utilities in Linux are going to be rewritten in Rust as well. And when you do this kind of stuff, what you're looking for is kind of the high value targets. Like where can we get the most bang for the buck? It's not so much performance, although one of the criteria here is we don't want this thing to bog down performance. But what they found is actually there are no performance issues at all for doing this. And there are huge security implications.
Yes.
In a positive way.
And that's the main thing is that Rust is this modernization of a general purpose language focused on type safety. So you get past these sort of core issues about data injection and buffer overruns, and
Right,
like all of that stuff comes for free. And they've managed to do it in a way that compiles with very
To native,
comparatively low overhead. Like it's impressive.
Right. Typically, to get this kind of protection, you need what Microsoft calls a managed language, like C# or Java does this as well, where there's kind of an intermediary between you and the OS or whatever, however you want to describe that.
Yeah. And it makes me wonder if you won't see an initiative over time with various bits of Windows being rewritten in Rust for just that reason. Yeah. And I'd also say this: they need new devs in the Wins team, and you aren't going to get them right in C++.
Yes, thank you. This is one. Yeah, exactly. I follow like the kind of Stack Overflow and other similar sites where they do little developer surveys every year, and there's an interesting thing you'll see in there. The trends are very clear. Everyone loves Rust. It's not really clear how I could get a job in Rust.
Yes.
I want to use it, but I have to use. Hopefully it's not JavaScript, but it's the disparity between like the real world and what they want to do is pretty big. But now that the platform makers are starting to put Rust into the kernels of these systems, all of a sudden this could be an interesting job opportunity.
Well, and it is finally encroaching in the C++ spaces. Like I think we could see drivers written in Rust. Like typically something you'd only ever see in the C space.
Yep.
It's interesting to see in the aviation industry, which I occasionally bump into. They've been retiring old languages as well, languages like Ada, and moving to C.
Wow.
So now would be a question of moving to languages like Rust. Like clearly the tech giants are all over it. I'd like to see NASA into it.
Yeah.
For exactly that reason. Like these guys write quality code and they write it the hard, expensive way.
Yeah.
Maybe this is an easier way to write that kind of quality code.
That's right. Yeah, I'm really interested in this. I wonder if we'll learn more about this at Build. I was fascinated to see them come out and discuss this.
It'll be interesting to see what happens with the CPP conference. That's Microsoft's C conference.
Okay.
And certainly never going away. Like it's a great
no.
conference.
But look, you know this better than anybody. Microsoft's best message to developers has always been, we'll show you a way forward. They've been very good about that. And I don't think anyone saw a way forward for C/C++ other than more C and C++. And this is very similar language, syntactically.
Yeah. Now it's very approachable. It just takes a bunch of stuff off the table, and it more importantly shakes off literally decades of cruft.
Yeah,
just decades of built on. This is the specs are from 2015. This is really new.
Yep.
Yeah, exciting.
Yeah,
very exciting.
I think so.
And by the way, the chief purpose of this is a memory safe language, right?
Yes,
that's really the issue. Is that
what they're looking? Yeah, they're
all
looking
these
at the
null
parts of the
pointers
kernel.
And
where can things go south? Yeah, yep.
And Rust protects you from that at compiler side or at runtime.
So it's definitely a compile time. And I think the idea is that you're creating code that will also be safer at runtime.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't require. It's not like it's a runtime environment. That's the point. That's the overhead they're trying not to.
Right. No, it's like it's a systems language. It's like C. In that regard.
Yeah.
But I think it probably does stop null pointers at runtime as well. It must, otherwise. But you find it in the coding.
One of the side effects of us having to discuss the feature updates they add to Windows every single month, right, and including the thing we're about to talk about next, is just how surface level and stupid it all is, right? It's like this moment in time, like they're doing this one stupid little change, and it's like, is this all we have to talk about? And it's very exciting to me to see, because with no one's really writing new Windows apps anymore. Like, what's the developer thing? What's going on technically with Windows? It's not really that interesting,
Mm-hmm.
And so the fact that they're even taking the time to do this to me is just so great.
Now this is internal, right? It's not going to impact any third-party developers, although it does kind of give a nice seal of approval. Linux did this a couple of months ago, and so it gives it a nice seal of approval, like, this is a good systems language and it's memory safe. So you should learn it.
Yeah, it's the big vendors betting big products on it.
Yeah,
right? For the past few years, it's been
quiet
stuff.
Yep. And when the best minds in the industry at this level, the really technical people, the Linux Torvalds, the Mark Verzinovich of the world, whatever, whoever they are, kind of endorse this, I think that it just I think it just gives it a whole, because we can debate, things like Swift and C# and, Dart and whatever, like Kotlin, like, yeah, it's kind of interesting, but like, this is just this kind of deep level stuff. I almost felt like we were kind of past this almost, like, like they would never do this work again. Yeah. Yep. So I really like to see this. I love that they're spending, obviously, Windows Server, Azure, there's some shared infrastructure there and some lower level stuff. And I'm sure these changes will benefit the cloud side of the house as well. That's fine. I mean, obviously, I would expect that's where this comes from originally. I'm sure that's where the kernel lives, so to speak, is with that side of the company. That's great.
Is the kernel code so isolated that you could do this? I mean, Windows from the outside feels to me like a pile of spaghetti. And it's not like you could just take one strand of spaghetti out and say, we're going to replace this with a whole.
No, the kernel is like a meatball in the middle of the spaghetti.
So it's
spicy meatball.
It's separate enough that you could. It's not the whole.
Well, this is the whole system for. Yeah, I mean, the lower level parts of the system interact with the kernel in a very specific way, and so it's a black box. It's very much like the COM stuff. You don't know how it's written internally from the outside. It doesn't matter. You have a certain set of functions you can call. You get things back, and this is just making that to the outside world, whatever that is, other parts of Windows or third-party developers, whatever. Nothing changes. It's just that it's more secure now. If it was just more secure now and it was like 10% slower, I bet we would accept that. But the thing that's fascinating about Rust is that's not what they found. No. There is no performance penalty.
Oh no, yeah, Rust is good.
This is the beauty of Rust.
Yeah.
So
I wonder where Dave Cutler falls on this.
Yeah, right.
I mean,
the creator of NT.
Yes, yeah. and I've heard is still working.
Right.
But also just turned 81.
And a C++ guy, I'm presuming. Yes.
And it's through and through 4 decades, right?
Yep.
So, yeah, I really wonder, but not a young man. Like, no choice about it.
Well, this was the guy, when the original design of NT, the graphic stuff was all outside of the kernel for all of the obvious security, whatever, reliability reasons. And to make this thing perform well on relatively low-end hardware of the day, they had to change that design. And he fought that tooth and nail because that's bad design,
and he was right.
Yeah, but this is the realities of the market, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, got to make it work. The Ring 3 versus Ring 0 battles.
Yeah. Mr. Lyon in our Discord reminds me that someone announced that they were going to rewrite SU and SU. Did you mention that?
Yep.
Oh, okay. In Rust.
I did.
Yeah, you did. Okay.
Yep.
That's not. I mean, I don't think that's the official SU and SU do.
Right.
Somebody's going to do it, and
I think whatever architect of whatever system should be looking at what they can do and where the benefits are. And I think again, I don't think we're going to see a wide scale wipeout of C and C++ across the board.
Well, that's why I'm asking it how modular it is, because I like the idea of saying one brick at a time, rewriting one brick at a time in Rust. And certainly with in Unix, SU is a standalone app. I mean, you can write it in any language you want. But this is a little different because you have all these interactions.
Yeah, I mean, I think the front end stuff is a little different. The back end stuff, though, I like it's as modular as it's. I would call it componentized. I guess I don't know.
Yeah.
It's again, like in the black box sense, you have some set of interfaces you're calling, or can call.
Yeah, and as long as those
you change the internal. This is the classic kind of OOP design, really.
Right.
I mean, so yeah, this is what they're doing, and we'll never. I don't know. We'll see. How much they update, but they may never talk about it again. I don't know. I don't know.
See, I'm not. I've played with Rust. In fact, when Rust kind of came out, the first book I kickstarted it and got it and all that stuff. And it's a little too much boilerplate for me as a hobbyist, but I understand the value of it. Have you, but I'm not familiar enough. I know that the way it does memory management is not exactly garbage collection, but it's not exactly do it yourself. And so that's going to be, I would say that's probably a big impedance mismatch between existing software where you do you do an malloc and that you're responsible for deallocating that memory when you're done with it. Rust doesn't work that way. So I'm
Right.
wondering if that's, I don't know enough about it.
I
to know.
think I don't know enough about it either. Though I researched this and wrote a short article about it, and the way that I described it at the time was that the difference between this and other C-like languages is that it cannot write code. You cannot compile code that improperly handles memory.
Right.
It just does not allow you to do
It
that.
stops. And then at runtime, it has this concept of ownership.
Yeah.
That helps
And-
protect for
yes.
insertion.
Richard had that great quote a couple of weeks ago about, we gave you the gun, but you shot yourself in the foot. That's C++.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And with Rust, you can't shoot yourself in the foot. So I think that's, I kind of compared it to the managed code languages, right? That to achieve this type of code safety, I guess for lack of a better term, you typically need some kind of a managed layer that sits between you and the hardware. And the Rust compiler creates native code, right? So
Yeah.
there's no intermediary layer, and that's part of the reason for the performance.
Right. It's my understanding
Yes.
that memory is allocated, and when allocated, is owned by a process. So that process is kind of, I don't know. I don't understand. It's very fancy. It's very fancy. I don't know.
Right.
I don't understand it anymore.
I just think syntactically, if you are a, God help you, a C guy still today in 2023, you'll look at Rust and say, oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, I think that's true.
It's very familiar. I think that's the big, that's part of the appeal, right?
Yeah. And to keep you from shooting yourself in the foot is always a nice thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now with less holes in foot.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think that's good.
I'm only saying less.
Yeah.
I
I
will
wonder
say,
how committed Microsoft is to this. If it's, it could just be a PR thing, right? Look what we're doing.
I don't know.
Well,
Who does that? I don't know. I don't know who that benefits. I'm like I said, I'm surprised they're even doing this. But they are, and that's fantastic. And
well, I'll give you one context on it because you're also seeing it in Linux, which is that the cloud vendors are afraid of cross-instance infection.
Yes,
Sure.
that's what Mr.
Right,
Lyon
and
is
so-
saying in Discord. AWS is behind this. They
all
really-
of the cloud. This is the thing that cloud vendors fear.
okay,
Is that we're busy
these
sharing
things
our
are
machines.
running up in the there you go.
Mhm.
Okay,
Mhm.
there you
And
go.
so anything we can do to start building code that would resist that exploit someday surfacing. That was the real fear with Spectre and Meltdown back in the day.
Right.
Yep.
Was exactly that I could invoke in another process at visibility into data in your process.
Yeah.
But in that case, we're talking about apps on the same system. Now we're talking about different operating system installs on the same hardware. So the memory that's shared is across multiple systems. It's even scarier. It's security at scale, I guess.
It is the stuff that keeps the cloud owners awake at night and
Yeah.
and it makes it worthwhile to put the kind of energy we're talking about in rewriting operating systems is a terrible job. At best, you get back to where you were. More likely is you broke stuff that used to work.
That might be why they're talking about it, because the reality is no one is going to realize a benefit when they don't get hacked.
Yes.
But
they will certainly notice when what used to work breaks.
Yes. Right. Yep.
Cool.
I'm going to skip right over this stupid widget board story because I just talked myself out. It just
Yay.
who cares?
I don't even know what
Anyway,
it is. What is
The,
it?
the
Microsoft
correct
is
number of
testing
widgets
nonsense.
is none.
Zero widgets. And
Raise
it's
your
funny
hand
because
if you use
Apple,
the widget board.
the rumor is Apple's adding widgets back to the Apple Watch. So if you miss your widgets,
Well, hold on a second.
Come
Though.
on
The widgets that Apple would have on an Apple Watch aren't going to be the crap that we have in Windows 11, right? Every time I look at it, I want to gouge my eyes out. Why am I looking at it now? Stop doing this. The point is, it's always terrible. It's always a new kind of terrible. I was because I like boring my wife to death. I was telling her the other day that in the beginning, widgets were terrible because there's a picture of Leo.
yeah, well,
There you
it's
go.
got my
Oh,
I
that
have
is a
my
picture of Leo. I
photos
see
in
that's
there.
your
Yeah.
okay. I'm like,
No,
well, Leo's on the widget board.
Oh my God, something's come out about me. Oh, I'm in trouble.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So in the beginning, it was terrible because it was always like, you're never going to leave with the celebrity award of this event. Or
Look
like,
how
it's
many
like,
Donald Trumps are in my widgets. That's telling, isn't it?
But the big thing that I see in the widget board today are these stories. They're not stories. They're the listicle type things where you have to click next on the picture
Yeah,
to
I
see
hate
the
that.
next thing.
Yeah.
And it's just
You won't believe what happens.
customer
next.
service stories like or like road rage stories or like all these like nonsense
Garbage.
It's just garbage. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just terrible.
Garbage.
Yeah, it's sad. It
The
makes me
wives of the 25 most famous WWE wrestlers.
sad. I mean, kill me. I just.
What is this source? Bolavip.
Yeah. We should say.
Oops, I clicked it. Oops.
When you click on it, where you go is Microsoft Start.
I just said
And
a
by the way,
signal.
you clicked on a listicle. Yeah, this is what I just talked about.
sent a signal that I want more.
Yeah. So what you can't see, Leo, in that screen you're on right there is what you're supposed to be doing. Supposedly is reading the text below the picture, right? So, each of those pictures
I
has
could
a
do
paragraph
fewer
of text.
stories like this, right?
You could, and it's not.
You know what? I'm going to hide stories from Bolavip.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever the hell that is.
So I love how long it takes. Right? There's a little animation.
Ching. And
processing.
I've got the best guitar riffs of all time, according to Guitar World.
I found it would be better if you just never opened widgets. Yeah, and I wish to God
I think you're right.
that you could do to widgets what you can do to the Edge new tab screen, which is turn off the newsfeed. Right. In other words, there are some widgets you might want to put there for weather and your photo gallery and whatever other things you care about.
That's the main reson I have it there.
That's a fun little,
because I have weather in my corner. I like that.
So what happens is like the strategy that people have now is they'll add enough of these custom widgets to the top to hide the news stuff. Right. In other words, you won't see it because it's below the fold.
Clever.
And it's like, guys, you shouldn't have to think like that.
Yeah, if you light your desktop on fire, you'll ignore the news feed all day long. It's easy.
I kind of have done that. So I have the Giants, San Francisco Giants, and weather.
Yeah, just because you were, whether you knew what you were doing or not, you were hiding the crap.
I was hiding the crap. It's not. I need more widgets to hide the crap though, because it's apparently not hiding.
You're not done yet.
Yeah, the comeback, whatever that is. Or Bang Malaysia. I mean, these sources are ridiculous.
I know.
Imagine if this was just Reuters and Associated Press.
Yeah, then it would be okay. I don't think I ever want to read an article from a source called Be Viral.
Yeah.
And by the way, the headline, person does a knee buckle and lands in a death dive.
No, it sounds like that's just IQ points lost right there.
Yeah. By the way, I don't have that 3-dot menu on this. I just have
that one.
Oh no, you do. It's below the picture, below the text.
Oh, there it is. Oh, good. Move it around so we can't find it. That's clever. That'll do it. And I need to manage my interests.
Is this? Are we literally at the point now where we're just playing whack-a-mole? Like, where's the option to just block them all?
Right. Block them all. Got to block them all.
So sorry.
I'm going to manage my interests. Managing interests now. How about just business news and technology? That'll fix it, right? And science. There you go. That'll fix it. Nothing else. Take the NFL out.
I can't tell you how many times I've tried to customize a feed like this, and it doesn't.
Now let's see.
The thing you have to remember is there is actually an endless supply of crap.
There is,
and so you can
rockin' facts you didn't know about the Eagles.
I don't think it's changed a thing.
It
really.
didn't change anything.
I think you did nothing.
Oh,
actually, I think what you did was you brought back that thing that you canceled earlier.
I did. I brought it back. Oh gosh, and I accidentally clicked on this, which is now telling Windows I like it.
Also, you were just served an ad that's going to follow you around the internet for the rest of your life too. So.
Right. Oh, try Microsoft 365. Everything I need to achieve more in less time.
Oh. It's like the deceit interface.
We
Let's see
hearing
what
you.
we can fool you into clicking on next.
We hearing you. Hide card. Okay. Bye-bye. I already own Microsoft.
But there's no option to say receive no more things from Microsoft? That's not an option?
Of course not. Of course. What are you, crazy? Now, can I move this traffic cameras up? I wouldn't mind having that up at the top. No, can't drag things, can you? I'm sorry. Let's just forget. Let's just forget we ever met.
I remember when you said we weren't going to do the widget story. I remember.
Good. I was able to move traffic cameras up. So now I am actually hiding all
more.
See, there you
go.
Now you've, that was just a good use
Now
of your
you've
time.
really solved it. Keep it below the fold.
That's,
Eesh.
oh boy. Oh boy.
Eesh.
Oh boy.
Eesh. All right. Sorry. Go ahead. Do other things.
So, I wrote this just before this changed a little bit, but this month StatCounter says that Safari has surpassed Edge usage on the web, right, as a web browser. So obviously distant number 2 and 3 compared to Chrome. But if you look at these two browsers, they've been kind of paralleling each other for a while.
I'm just stunned that a Safari's that low down.
This is just
the
on the
default
desktop.
browser.
Sorry. This is just
on the desktop.
Yeah.
But that
Here's
still counts max, doesn't it?
Yeah. If you if you look at all web browsers, Safari actually is up in the, they're up pretty high. Because I think a lot of Apple people tend to be loyal. And of course it has the cross-platform stuff that is absolutely a benefit of that. So yeah, I get that. But Safari usage, here's the thing. So we don't know how many Mac users there are exactly. Microsoft has pinned the number of Windows users at 1.5, 1.4 billion, depending on the day of the week or whatever.
Right.
But if you look at StatCounter's stats, it suggests this is absolutely not the case, but it suggests that there could be 350 million Macs in the world if those numbers are all true.
Wow.
That's not true, but let's pretend it is, because this doesn't. It doesn't change my argument, right? In other words, if there are only 100 million or 200 million Macs, what I'm about to say is actually worse. So this is a conservative way to make my point, which is this. Apple, with 1/4 the usage of Windows, has as many or more people on their browser than does Microsoft. Interesting. So yes, part of it is absolutely the cross-platform stuff, no doubt about it. It's also fair to point out that most people on every platform are using Chrome, full stop. So nothing has stopped that. However, I think it says a lot about Edge that its usage is now lower. We'll call it the same, roughly the same as Safari, despite the fact that it is pre-installed as the default on at least 4 times as many computers. More than that, but let's just say 4. It doesn't matter. And it pops up whether you want to use it or not. There's all these underhanded tactics that they employ to get you to use it. So you choose Chrome or Firefox or whatever you like as your default browser. You click on a search highlight. You click on one of those widget stories. There's a couple of different places in the UI. It loads in Edge. Anyway, so despite all the underhanded tactics that Microsoft has employed, they still have only managed to engage 1/4. I'm going to argue it's a lot less than that, but we'll call it 1/4 of the respective user base that Apple has. So why? Why is that? And I think it's because Apple, if you don't have a Mac, go look at the web, go to apple.com/Safari and look at what this browser is. And what this browser is nothing. It just gets out of your way and you browse the web with it. That's what it does.
Right.
It doesn't put stuff in front of you. It's just not busy with it. Doesn't have that widget-like thing you just looked at with all the crap in it on its homepage. It's there for you to use to browse the web. And whatever we think about Apple, I'm not the world's biggest fan of Apple. I think people would understand I've been pretty critical, but this product is minimalist, and both in design, like the way it looks, but also in the way that it works. And Edge is busy and it gets in your way, and it's constantly adding new features. Between now and the beginning of the year, I think Microsoft has added like 17 new features to Edge. Now, some of them are useful. I know. Don't worry about that stuff. But Edge is designed to just push crap. That whole thing we just did with the widgets, that's Edge. That's
Right.
what Edge is.
They're really, really trying to help you.
Yeah, it really. I
know you didn't want any help, but they really want to help you.
I think this proves is a strong word, but strongly suggests that Microsoft's approach with web browsing is much worse than Apple's, even though they went with the industry standard browser rendering engine, et cetera, et cetera. And that when we talk about this in shiftified thing that we talk about so much, that's what Edge is. And that's not what Safari is. And I don't mean to say it. Well, I almost said it, but I don't really wish I could have Safari on Windows. What I wish is I could have an Edge on Windows that was like Safari.
Right. Where is Safari mode?
Yeah. Right. Safari mode. Get out of my way.
Yeah.
Now there are some rumors that Microsoft might be putting a front end onto Edge that would let you uncheck certain features, which I would welcome wholeheartedly, but I don't know. It's depressing.
Yeah. Give me the quiet version.
There's also, I get a lot of pushback from Edge users, who will tell me something like, well, I like the browser. I like the features. Okay, that's fine. Or, well, at least it's not Safari. At least it's not Safari. It is Safari. You are getting tracked as much with this browser as you are with Safari. Not Safari. I'm sorry, Chrome.
With Chrome.
Sorry about that. It's as bad as Chrome in that regard. The only difference is the ad network that your information is going to is owned by Microsoft, not Google. So it's probably not as sophisticated. I mean, and it's not as pervasive.
Yeah. Microsoft didn't have to go that way either. This is not like this is their principal revenue model. They could have done this differently.
They want it to be a principal revenue model, which I think is part of the problem.
And that you're totally right.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, now, why fall down this toxic path that's clearly on the that is struggling? Like bit by bit, the customer doesn't want this anymore and are looking for alternatives and are subverting your intent. Like, why would wasn't it Satya who said we're not racing for second anymore? Right. So why are you going down the same path?
There's no race. They're just there.
Yeah. Because the guys at the top are saying, hey, this model isn't working for us anymore. And you're still trying to get to the point where you care that the model doesn't work anymore.
Yeah. Someone in the comments, in the Discord comments here, has raised an issue which is pertinent to this, which is, Apple can do this because people pay them directly for the hardware. That's what, that sort of subsidizes the whole thing. Microsoft's kind of hardware subsidization program, so to speak, has gotten a lot less effective because people don't upgrade as often, and they do the partner strategy thing.
Let me throw it at you this way then. Give me an M365 browser.
Thank you. 100%. This is,
I'll pay you every month.
Yeah, I will pay you extra every month for this over on top of what I'm already paying you. Yes,
for sure. To have a browser that doesn't suck.
And an operating system that doesn't suck. This is, get rid of the ads, get rid of the tracking, get rid of all that stuff, get rid of the bloat, get rid of all the stupid features, or at least give me the checkboxes where I can say no to stuff. And remember it, sync it to my Microsoft account.
You've already got my credentials. Yep. I'm already paying you.
Yep.
For literally, we could have a button. I have a button on this account that says "Make it not suck."
This is, I don't mean to say this system is perfect, but the system is perfect because it serves everybody. There are people who can't afford to do this. And this is a very standard model for that kind of a thing. People who want to pay extra for a premium service can get a better service. It's the difference between business class and coach, I guess, or whatever. The reality is everyone gets to fly. Yes, you're going to have a slightly worse experience if you fly in the back of the plane. That's the unfortunate reality of it. But it's better to have that choice than just to be, sorry, we're Southwest. Or whatever airline you can't stand. It's just horrible that there's no choice. And
I'm just staggered that they went down the same path.
Yep. I don't like. I own my own little stupid website, and we have a premium program, and we have terrible ads for people who don't pay, and that's the reality. I can't control the way the world works, but even I can offer this as an option. I mean, why can't Microsoft do this? Yeah. And that's a direct relationship too. I mean, when we used to buy Windows, or upgrade Windows, whatever, there wasn't really much of a direct relationship between Microsoft and their customers, individuals on that side. This creates that relationship, and I trust Microsoft, and I should be able to trust Microsoft, and I would pay them for this service. And I think
especially if you're already paying for an M365 account, like I'm not even saying just turn everything off, but give me control over it.
That's right.
Show me the digital effluent coming out of my browser that I can now choose what goes where.
I know it makes me sad.
They had all the opportunities. They had everything to do this.
When they announced this Chromium version of Edge, I thought this is it. They're gonna take the world's most popular browser, get rid of all the Chrome, the Google stuff.
Right.
Yes, this is something I'm going to be able to use and recommend to people. And then what you find out is no. And then you see their deceptive practices. The language they use during setup to make it seem like you're making the web better, when in fact you're just allowing more tracking. And the way they keep coming back again and again and again. You don't even know what they're asking you. You just like click through it. And that's the point. They want you to open it up even further.
How do I? I'm going to give you a set of dialogues that you'll find the quickest way to get rid of, so I get what I want from you.
Yep. It's just underhanded, and this is a bad relationship.
It's it's unfortunate because, and it also sucks, right? Like that's the sad part.
So sad. So sad.
Hey, if I wanted to be exploited, I just would have stayed with Chrome. It was simpler.
Right. Exactly. I just wish they would fix this. Semi-related to this, in the past week, one of the many new features Microsoft added to Edge this calendar year, all of a sudden, people started noticing that every time you were browsing the web, everything that you did on the web was being sent to Bing. Now, this sounds nefarious, right?
Yep.
But no, what this is a poorly written new feature that allows you to follow influencers or whatever on YouTube and other sites, I guess. Even though there's systems for doing that exist in those services, you could do it through your Edge web browser. There's a collections interface you might be familiar with. They added it to that. This thing has been part of collections for many months. It's just that there was no obvious UI for it. So they added the obvious UI, and now it tracks you everywhere you go. So Microsoft said they were investigating it. It appears to be a mistake. So they're probably going to fix it
that made it all the way into production.
Yep.
Again.
Because that's what happens when you don't test features.
Yeah.
In an insider program, which Edge does have an insider program. So I don't know. I don't know if that one was actually maybe that one was tested. I don't know. So anyone out there still using Edge? We need to have a word.
I still use it, and this is probably inertia as much as anything else is for my PDF reader. I don't use it to browse the web.
Oh, for your PDF reader. Okay.
Yeah.
I could get Firefox to do that instead, but I like to separate.
Yeah.
I like to separate.
What? Not Adobe? Yeah. Oh my goodness.
So you're saying that Edge has two good uses. You can use it to install Firefox and use it as a PDF reader.
Perfect.
There you go.
Keep it around.
Like it. Nice.
The reason being, I don't want it to PDFs to get into my Firefox. I want to keep them separate.
Ooh. Is that a PDF
Gross.
in your Firefox?
Sticky.
Sticky.
There isn't really a strong, compelling reason to use Edge, except that it's just what the default, right? I mean, is there anything it does better than anything? I mean, Safari, as you say, has an advantage. It's simple,
right,
and it's clean.
Well, look, there are user interface niceties to Edge that people like, and Edge in this way is a lot like Windows. There's a million features, and this guy likes this feature, this guy likes this feature, that kind of thing. And so it's become a grab bag of stuff. The original vision of this was for it to be, remember, we're going to get out of your way and would use Chrome with a small c, like, don't worry about the browser Chrome, we're going to show you the content. It was all about that kind of thing, and it really kind of isn't.
Newman says Edge is great for touch. That might be good. That might be a good reason to do it.
Okay, well, those 17 guys can use that. That's fine.
Yeah. Iridescent Ox says, I love the read aloud feature.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go.
Yep. Yeah, no, there are definitely things that it does. I think some of the the Bing chat bot integration is kind of interesting to people.
That's why. Yeah, that was what got me kind of to
Yeah, I mean, browser makers are starting to do sidebars. The idea is that you're on a page doing something, and you don't want to leave to go do something else. You could have this other thing on the side, and that's interesting. I mean, I don't care myself, but I mean, that's something that people like, and yeah, that's fine. But the problem is, I gotta bring up Edge just to look at it. I hate myself.
Scooter X says, this is the Edge case.
Yes,
making the Edge case.
The problem with this kind of thing is, I would argue that most of these features are better added to a browser via an extension, right? And that in doing so, you create something that would not just work on your browser. It would work on any Chromium-based browser. Microsoft doesn't want that, and they want people to use this thing. And I don't know. It just makes me every time I look at this thing, it makes me sad. It's too bad, but it does split screen. If you want split screen,
oh boy,
people like split screen. I don't know. Anyhow, there you go. There's that.
That was between widgets and Edge. You just used half an hour of my life that I'm never going to get back.
I know. I'm so sorry. Or you're welcome. Really, I don't know. I don't know how you want to take that.
I've literally spent this entire time customizing widgets because you brought it up. Trying to get it to work. Then
I am sorry. Yeah. I can state with some certainty you will never get that where you want it to be.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Yeah, and I wish, like I said, they could make this thing useful, and the way to do that is to have a view where the newsfeed disappears, and you only have the widgets you decide on. And one of the side benefits of that could be, I don't know that it is today, that information sources like Bloomberg or whatever could create their own widget, and then you could have these widgets for high quality sources that you chose that just appear there. That would be kind of nice.
I just want to take Microsoft out of my stock watch list, but they won't let me. I don't care. I don't want
Oh no, you need to watch.
Oh no, I don't want to watch.
They
Please.
tape the eyelids open. You're gonna watch.
Oh God, it's not. I mean, I'm not. I don't have any Microsoft stock, so I really don't care.
Right.
Okay.
Well, now we know what to get you for Christmas.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Actually, you know what? The best Christmas present I ever gave Michael, our 20-year-old's a Green Bay Packers fan. I bought him a share in the Green Bay Packers, and he's got it framed on the wall.
So I had a friend from grade school who in the early 1990s gave me a share of Commodore stock. And guess how much that's worth today?
But what a piece of history you have there.
Yes, I still have it, actually. It's kind of a cool.
Because you were an Amiga guy. I think that's cool. Yeah.
It's a beautiful looking document for sure.
Yes, stock certificates are really
beautiful.
Cool. Yeah, they're beautiful. I don't know where they're used, but
we had to get our a copy of our wedding certificate. I guess, is that what it's called? A wedding certificate for when we bought the apartment in Mexico. And this thing came and it was in Boston, had gold leaf.
Wait
on
a
it.
minute.
So I was like,
you have to prove you're married to get an apartment together in Mexico.
If we were buying,
so you're not living in sin.
I don't. We had to do it for. Yes, I don't. I guess so.
No, I guess your joint
proof of marriage.
Yeah, but here in the U.S., you could just say, we don't.
Yeah, no, we never needed it. We had never seen this before.
Oh, that's funny.
So her parents got it at wherever they did it locally, and they sent it to us. And I was like,
isn't that sweet?
We should get another one of these. This is really nice.
Put it over the marital bed.
It's
pretty. It's the marital bed. Anything that happens to the bed stays in the bed.
There you go.
So,
do you want to talk hardware vendors dying?
Please. Intel.
Yeah, continuing the theme of the PC industry is in trouble. Intel and AMD just released their earnings. Intel, I don't think it's unkind to say circling the drain, maybe. A loss of $2.8 billion in revenues of 11.7, which is a 36% year-over-year downfall, if you will, in revenues. Obviously, the PC part of the business, which is their Intel client computing group, is the big problem. And data center is pretty bad too, actually. So client computing fell 38% revenue-wise to $5.8 billion. Data center and AI business, data center, fell 39% to $3.7 billion. Intel Foundry Services, which is the future of the company, down 24%. I mean, it's like,
But all of these things were up because of the pandemic. And the other part of it that I think is interesting on this is, and they would have made money, but they're building so many foundries right now. They spent a tremendous amount of money.
The one thing Intel is doing is investing heavily in their future, and that's the foundry services part of it. And
partly getting out of Southeast Asia, like don't build in Taiwan, right? Like
yes. First of all, is this smart? Is this the right strategy? I think it's a strategy. I mean, it's a good idea. I do think we need more of these companies that can build these things, right?
Yeah.
We don't, not just TMSC. But I maybe one of you guys will remember, I just saw a headline that, I remember. They're going to build a foundry, TMSC is going to, in Germany, by the way. TSMC, I'm sorry. And there you go. I mean, that's going to be the problem.
Yeah, because their foundry in Arizona is foundering, I thought, maybe.
Yeah, I thought so too. Yeah.
They don't like the so they were using money from the CHIPS Act, but there's some very severe restrictions on what you could do with the CHIPS Act.
They want it to be they want most of that to be U.S. companies, right? I mean, the point of it is,
So maybe Germany's a more favorable environment.
I'm positive it is. So I mean, I think spreading the wealth, so to speak, makes sense no matter which company we're talking about here. So you want these things all over the place because what happens to Apple if China just wakes up one day and says, we're shutting this all down.
Trust me, Apple's well aware of this. Yeah.
I mean, the world's biggest company, right, could be brought to their knees by
if you look at the facilities they've built out in India for exactly that reason, right? Foxconn's got a whole group over there. The phone 14's being built in India, not in China.
Right. That's right. Yeah.
Some of them are.
It's gonna take a while, but it's coming. Or they're trying to at least diversify there. That makes sense. AMD is not immune to the same problem. So AMD net loss 139 million on revenues of 5.4 billion. I just to kind of put that in perspective. AMD used to be, I would say, a quarter to 1/3 the size of Intel.
Yeah, not even. Yeah, the fact that
it's half. It's half. That's a big change. Not that they're doing well. I mean, net income pledged 118%. Revenues fell only 9%, but their client group, which is the PC market part of it, 65% drop to just, it's not even $1 billion, like $739 million. Last year, the same quarter, they had 2.1 billion in revenues. And actually their client stuff is kind of split between that and gaming, right? Because they sell graphics products for the PC and also the gaming industries. That actually was flat, pretty much. It was down, I think maybe down 1% or something. Was it 1.76 billion in revenues? I think it was 1.8 or something. It was close. It wasn't too bad.
These are the numbers that make me not surprised that companies like Microsoft are pulling back. Yeah. Because these are sort of the leading indicators for impact for them on, as a trailing indicator. Like they're now worried about their next quarters looking at these. I hope it isn't true that they're misreading it, but certainly on the hardware side, there's so many factors moving on here. But I think the big one is that they're investing so heavily because they've been driven to that they probably would have done a lot better without all of this investment, without anticipating the downturn they were going to have.
Listen, if they could be the biggest turnaround in the world and will be singing their praises in 3 or 4 years, who can say? But it's a big bet. I give them credit for taking the bet. I mean, it's we'll see.
Yep. We'll see.
But here's the good news. We're always looking for that light at the end of the tunnel. And interestingly, both Intel and AMD predicted that they would see growth in the second half of the year, and that the PC and server markets are going to rebound. So not to, pandemic levels. I think right now everyone would be very happy with pre-pandemic levels, but obviously we're looking for this thing to
we are dealing with an oscillation here. That is feedback of the
that's going to be ugly. Yeah, short term is pretty ugly.
Yeah.
All right, let's now that we've really cheered everybody up, let's change the subject for a second and talk about our sponsor, if you don't mind. And then back with more. We'll talk Microsoft 365. We'll talk Surface. I'm sure there's some Xbox news Paul can shoehorn into the show.
Just a little.
And some brown liquor, I'm sure, coming up as well. But first, a word from our sponsor, Melissa, the address experts. From forms on a web page to checkout, your customer data comes from a lot of different places. Sometimes the customer enters it. Sometimes your CSRs enter it. In either case, you got room for error, right? Or incomplete customer information. Error is probably the worst, but, empty fields aren't great either. With Melissa's interestingly named Personator Consumer Tool, it's exactly what it does, so maybe it is a good name. You can get a superior snapshot of your customer, a Personator Consumer Tool. The enrichment of contact data is, of course, immensely valuable. It can improve your analytics. It can help you with your marketing campaigns, and maybe most importantly, fraud detection, which you may even have a regulatory requirement for. Personator Consumer not only appends additional data, stuff that's fields unfilled, for instance, but verifies name, address, contact information, date of birth. If you need social security numbers, all of that could be done quickly for a quick identity verification check. It will enrich data with geographic and demographic information for you. So you're verifying your customer, but also, helping to understand them better so you can give them the best possible customer service. When you have highly specific demographics, you can personalize your marketing, right? Find the best leads, offer the best service, offer the best deals for your customer situation. With Melissa, you gain access to appendable demographics, including, but this is not a full list, including but not limited to deceased information, occupation, presence of children in the household, number of adults in the household, marital status, homeowner or renter, household income in a range, not exact, right? Length of residence, and more. Melissa's address verification tools leverage 38 years of address verification expertise. It's flexible. It'll fit into any business model. It's accurate. It's automatic. It's fast. Melissa's global service can verify addresses for 240 countries and counting to ensure that only valid billing and shipping addresses enter your system. And of course, your data is absolutely secure with Melissa. SOC 2 compliant, HIPAA, GDPR compliant. Your data is in the best possible hands. Make sure your customer contact data is up to date. Get started today with 1,000 records cleaned for free. Just go to melissa.com/twit. Melissa.com/twit. We thank him so much for the support of Windows Weekly, and you support Windows Weekly as a winner and a dozer by using that address. That way, they know that you saw it here, and that's important to us. Melissa.com/twit. Thank you, Melissa. You are still in the. How long are you going to be in the temporary apartment? Is this?
I don't know. We're figuring out our next steps here.
Yeah,
we have a short-term lease, so
won't be forever.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
We were.
If I were you, I'd be in Mexico now and forever.
Listen. Please.
Can you? What are the residency requirements? Do you have to leave every few months?
No, I could stay there for a year now.
A year, and then go home for how long?
Just for a minute.
Oh, just cross the border once.
Yeah. Yep.
Come up, visit us, go back home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, we'll always
the problem
have.
I have kids and cats and
kids. I know kids.
We'll get there.
Cats. Okay, but kids are harder to.
I'm thinking about
abandon in.
Yeah, thinking about killing the cats. They're getting annoying.
No, don't say that. You're gonna get us in a lot of trouble. He's not, folks. He's joking.
I'm kidding.
He's kidding.
I've had cats my whole life.
He loves the kitties.
They're a little entitled.
Oh God,
they are cats.
Yeah.
So last night I go to bed. Sammy's on. They look like the sphinxes. One side of the bed sitting like this. Paris is at the other side of the bed. Look, they were like guard cats. And they stayed
one
there
of our
all
cats.
Night.
One of our cats has done everything she can to kill herself. Like she's multiple times has tried to kill herself.
9 lives.
And her latest thing is she'll go under the covers of the bed.
Yeah.
And it's just like a lump on the bed.
Like
so
there's
like
there's no breathe. There's no.
I plop down on the bed to put my socks on, and next to me I hear. She goes. It's like, cat. I literally am going to kill you someday by mistake.
Lie on you.
Like, what are you doing?
Wow.
Yeah,
okay.
Not smart.
Okay.
Not
but
smart.
we love cats, and we are not in any way advocating cat violence. No.
Well, sometimes. No.
No, never. Never, ever. Lisa is such a cat lover. Sure. We now have pillows throughout the house with cats on them. In case a cat is not available, you can pat the pillow.
You have a cat-shaped object available to you.
Everywhere.
Wow.
And I should show you some pictures. There's one area of the living room, the main living area, that is entirely cat toys, cat playthings, cat towers.
Have we?
Cat
is it time to have that conversation about cat ladies and?
Oh, she's a cat lady.
Yeah.
She says that. I knew it when I married her. I knew it. It's fine. Right. I actually like cats.
It is what it is.
It is what it is. I like cats. I don't mind it. Sure. I don't mind it.
We're animal free at the moment, and it's not bad.
Well, but see, we were talking about this because Paul can't. Paul has.
I can't leave.
Paul has obligations.
I stayed in a house and paid property taxes because I have a dog.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
did at the time.
Exactly.
It's like my daughter said. She's like, she wanted to be able to come home at Thanksgiving and to have dinner because we had this beautiful room and everything. I'm like, Kelly, I'm not paying $8,500 a year in property taxes, so you can come home for a weekend and have your dream dinner. Like this is not how the world works.
Yeah,
this is not the system.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Anywho, Lisa is now sending me cat pictures, hoping that I will play them on the air, but I'm not going to do that to you kids. We will move on to Microsoft 365.
Yeah, so anyone who has engaged with Microsoft on the web on the commercial side of the house has probably noticed that there are hundreds and hundreds of domains, and that if you just interact with a few of them, you kind of forget where to go. It's like I have Microsoft 365 and Azure, and like where am I going? That kind of thing. So they announced the inevitable that they're going to move to a single top level domain for all of this stuff over time. They'll forward the old domain names, obviously. And I when I first read this, I assumed what they meant was Microsoft.com, and that the cohesive domain would be cloud.microsoft.com. But no, the top level domain is .microsoft.
Oh, no.
Yes. So if you go to Microsoft 365 or Office.com, whatever it is today, and in the future, this will be .microsoft. And so
that's a lot of typing.
I know. I know.
I mean, it was .ms. I could almost get behind it.
Yep. I think, yeah, .ms, is that Mississippi? I don't know. No, probably not, actually. I don't know.
Montserrat.
Yeah. Montserrat. Yeah.
I was checking. Now, listen, we are talking Microsoft.
Yep.
Like the number 2 most valuable, they could buy Montserrat. I mean, it's just not that
100%. Yeah. And they could put a Microsoft store there. It'd be good.
Mm-hmm.
But it's going to be cloud.microsoft. So.
They tried to buy my .ms, right? They must have tried.
I hope so. Yeah. MSFT,
Microsoft.
maybe. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think they were going for memorable.
Yeah. I'm remembering to never type this.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, that's happening. All right. So that's not a big deal.
Okay.
But that's happening. A bigger deal. We've got 2 previews that have occurred that people have been waiting for in some ways. Loop preview, right? So I've been using that. That's cool. Now supports personal accounts. Good.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we should probably experiment with doing that for the show notes. Maybe we'll do that in a few weeks.
Yeah, that's right.
I have used, now that I've been able to kind of use it out in the world. I will say it, yes, very much like Notion, but also has some of the keyboard shortcuts from Microsoft Office or Microsoft Word, I guess, that I like, and so it has that advantage. And then Microsoft Designer is also available in an open preview. That was available previously in I think a limited preview of some kind.
Speaking about domains, that's designer.microsoft.
Designer.microsoft, of course. It's okay.
That's a good domain, man. Like people remember that.
No, I mean, I meant the product. The domain's good.
Nobody cares about the product. That's great.
I think people are confused by the product. It's kind of a tool like Canva, if you're familiar with that kind of thing, or what's the Adobe? I think it's just what's the Adobe thing called? Not Creative Cloud, but Creative, just Express, Adobe Express, but it used to be called Creative Cloud Express. So it's just a web service that helps you create graphics and other assets for websites and social media and stuff like that. So if you're a content creator, you would use a service like that. It's okay. It has some of the Bing chatbot, integration stuff. So you can describe something to it and it will create a graphic of it. It looks like kind of a dall-e style thing because that's what it is on the back end. So
dall-e engines involved. Yeah.
Yep. That's okay. I've used other things. I use other things. I do have this need.
I was thinking I'm gonna take this thing off for a spin to build the graphics for a new slide deck I need.
Yeah. I use stuff like this to create graphics for our Eternal Spring YouTube channel, but
the trick is to get a consistent style, right? I mean, that's really what you want. It's like I got 10 slides here for 10 ideas I want to communicate, but I want them to all have that sort of, they hang together.
Yeah, I have a semi-unique need in the sense that because I have this website and I have to use graphics on each image or on each article, you can go to Unsplash and Pixabay and stuff, and there's all the stock photo stuff you can use. It's honestly it's pretty good, but of course you don't own it, right? So, and what I mean by that is that picture could appear anywhere, right?
Right.
So, okay, I mean it's okay. It's not the worst thing in the world.
Stock photo generator.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, these AI services now you can create. I haven't done this yet, but you can create a photorealistic image that will be unique to you, and that there's some value to that, right? We got in trouble a few years ago where Microsoft back in 2016 held a build conference as they do, and they had these graphical assets. It was a picture of the Seattle skyline with the build logo on it. And of course, me and everyone else used that photo to talk about build. Build's coming on whatever date. And then years go by and their license for it expires. And then the photographer that took that photo went and tried to sue everybody because we're all using his photo. And it's like, dude, what are you talking about? You can clearly see I'm using the Microsoft version of it.
Go get them. Have fun with suing them.
But that's a real issue. So it's this stuff is interesting. So there's a lot of stuff going on there.
Well, and it is interesting to say, like, how are you going to prove that you have a generated image if someone says, I'm going to sue you for this? Well, it's like, hey, I used dall-e to generate this.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess I could just take a screenshot of dall-e and be like, here it is. So you can see
here's when I made it. Like, is that what I need to do? I need to screenshot me making it and then save the image itself.
Well, we do this for stuff, right? So I just did this for something. I canceled some online service. I've gotten in trouble in the past where it wasn't really Paramount Plus, but one of those types of services where I sign up, I use it for the free month, and then I cancel. And then a month goes by and I get a bill and I'm like, I cancel this. And they're like, we don't see any record of that. And so I've actually started taking screenshots of the site when I cancel stuff.
When you cancel it. Yeah.
It's like, guys, I don't know if this is an official record, but I can at least prove to myself that I did it.
I don't know how well this is going to work, but what I've lately been doing, we have a sponsor called privacy.com where you can generate credit cards, and I always generate them for that kind of thing. And
that's so smart to do.
And then I just stop it. I just pause the credit card and say, you figure it out. I'm not paying you anymore.
I like the idea of a one-use credit card number. You can do it for like one-time purchases is one thing. I know Amex does this, and there are probably other credit cards, but what you're talking about is a card. It's like when you create a unique email address for an email newsletter.
It has a variety of uses. So you could say this is for one time only. You could say it's for this merchant only.
Right.
You can set a limit to how much money, and then it has a pause feature. So anytime there's a subscription that I don't want anymore, I'm sure companies hate this.
But you got to do this stuff. It's also I think the problem with subscriptions is you forget. And I think a huge part of this business model relies on people just not looking at their banking accounts.
Right.
They don't see it coming up.
It's the gym model. I mean, how many times have you joined a gym and then just kind of stopped going after a while, but still pay for it?
Yep. Right.
That's how all gyms work. They don't expect you to use it.
As someone who goes to the gym, I love those people, by the way. So
They're subsidizing you.
Keep doing that.
That's right. Exactly. They're keeping the gym price low.
Yep. This is less exciting than I'd hoped, but Microsoft announced a major, I'll call it a visual and maybe even a functional overhaul of OneDrive. Nice. None of it is available now. So if you go through the list of all the stuff that's coming, they did a basic redesign of the homepage. Not a big deal, but all the big stuff, the For You section, which is all AI-driven stuff that you need to know about, the ability to browse by the people you're working with or the meetings that you've had, see all the documents associated with each, on and on and on it goes. None of that's available. So depending on the feature, it's coming this quarter, later this year, by the end of the year. Like they have all this different language. So it's like this year. Oh, and I should say, I'm sorry, the final one is this is only for work and school, right? It's not for the consumer account. So even though this should be coming to everybody, and probably some of it will, right? But they haven't announced anything for consumers. So this is only for work and school accounts. So yeah, someday I guess it's coming. I don't know.
I'm trying to figure out if there's business here anymore, right? I mean, everybody needs to store stuff. There's so much given away. There's so many different places. Like I feel for the Dropboxes of the world,
right? Just
because, the Googles and the Microsofts don't need to make money off of storage.
Yeah. I someone asked me about this. Someone asked a question around, okay, so I don't use OneDrive like this. Like I don't use it on the web. Why are they doing this? Like what is the point of this? And this is a very Microsoft thing. I mean, people interact with these services in different ways. There are probably half a dozen or more entry points to OneDrive. You could access it through Teams. You can obviously go through the file system integration in Windows. You could use it in a mobile app. And some of these things are, there's not an Office app, a Microsoft 365 app now in Windows. I don't know. Different people do different things. I don't know. I mean, I guess if you were on a Chromebook, you'd have to do it this way, right?
Well, maybe it's also like the gym model where a lot of people pay for it but don't use it. I bet you that's the case. That you just
with online storage, definitely.
Yeah, you forget about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but there's also this people that kind of abuse it. Like they'll throw up like a gigabyte of whatever nonsense, like video rips and stuff, and then never access it even once. And Microsoft has to, legally take care of that. I'm sure it's a little bit of both, but yeah, I don't know. I tried to separate this story out from my previous 7 rants on this episode because, I want to spread the wealth a little bit, but you will be delighted to know that Microsoft is soon going to change Outlook for Windows. And I assume they mean the new Outlook, but I'm not sure. And also Microsoft Teams, all the web links in those apps are going to open in Microsoft Edge, even if you've chosen a different browser. So let's let that one sink in for a second, right? Sound familiar? This is
nothing new. Yeah.
Strategy they use right in Windows 11, right? I think that, let's see. Yeah. Corporate customers are going to have the ability to change this, right? Which is good. But what about people? Are we going to have the ability to change this? So in other words, you've chosen Chrome. You're using Outlook as your email client. Someone has sent you an email with a link. You click on it, and it doesn't open in Chrome. It opens in Edge.
And still the numbers are low.
They're doing everything they can, though.
How many ways? Yeah, how many ways can they get you to use Edge before you just use Edge? I don't know. This kind of thing makes me sad. I don't know what to say here. I don't know what to say. I'll just say nothing. I think I've said it all. This is the company.
Now, here's a question for you.
Yeah.
I kind of wish Mary Jo were here. Do you know, is she still using her?
She never used it.
She never used
it. She
never
used it.
She had it.
Yeah.
She never
wanted to give it a shot. I think she said
that's did I. I returned mine.
Sure. That was the normal response.
They were expensive.
1,500 schmackers.
That's a lot of money.
I wouldn't spend that much on a Google Pixel folding phone or a Samsung folding phone. I'm not going to spend that much
Google
on a Microsoft.
Apparently is going to want you to spend $2,000 on their folding phone, but anyway, that's another story. We're talking about the Duo, the Surface Duo. They're the 2-screen with a hinge phone that Microsoft has done 2 versions of. Where is version 3?
So there was a rumor semi recently about that, saying that Microsoft had kind of held off on releasing a version 3 because possibly they were going to move to a folding screen device like you see everywhere else. And look, whatever anyone thinks about Surface Duo, I think anyone would agree this was kind of a holding pattern until Microsoft could get its hands on folding screen tech that worked for them, and we're going to do that, right? But
does the folding screen tech work for anyone?
Some people depends on who you talk to, right? Some people love it and say it's fine.
So I had I've had both the Galaxy Fold and the Flip.
Yeah.
I kind of liked the Flip. I thought it was cool, but I didn't want to use it as my daily driver. Gave it to Stacy Higginbotham on Twig.
Right.
She uses it. It's her daily driver. I asked her the other day, last week, is it creased? Is it weird looking? You've been using it for almost a year. She said, no, it's fine.
Yeah.
Some people like it. I think women especially like the
of course, because it can fit in a little bag.
Flip because it's small. It's like a pocket square. It could fit in your jacket pocket.
Yeah, I thought my wife would want that exact phone for that reason, and actually, she does want a folding phone, but she wants the big folding phone.
Yeah, the big one's really big because it's got it's double thickness. They've got to solve that before it really. But I still worry about the screen and the multiple folds. I don't know. I don't think they're that. It looks kind of weird after a while. It kind of looks creased.
Yeah. Yeah, only time's going to prove that out, right? There's nothing else that'll show.
We'll see. So, but that was the rumor as of, I don't know, late last year. But there's been a report in Windows Central from Zach Bowden, who we trust, that this thing is in trouble. And the reason isn't it's just it's not selling well, blah, blah, blah. It's just that there's been a lot of internal reorgs and layoffs, and there's really not that many people working in this part of the company anymore. And what it's done is really slowed work on anything. So, one of the issues with Duo, one of the many issues, is kind of a slow rollout of Android versions. Duo got Android 12L last October, which was right when Android 13 became available, or actually after. And it's gotten no updates, pretty much, not even fixes or improvement. Just
out of stock in Canada. I can't get one.
Yeah. So Microsoft has said it has nothing to share.
Well,
when it comes to Surface Duo.
Now I want one.
Yeah, now you want one.
Now that it's dead, nice. I want one.
Now that I can't order it.
Yep.
Is that because they don't have a care? Why can't you order it? I don't understand that.
I mean, it says out of stock.
Out of stock. So they're not. Oh, so that's probably true in the US.
It's never been sold through carriers, right? This is sold like a device. It's sold like a computer. I mean, you just kind of buy it.
Well, and she who must be obeyed dropped her phone down the concrete driveway on the coast.
What did she have? What was she using?
It was a 4A, so it doesn't owe anybody anything.
Oh my God, that's amazing. That's right.
I've been trying to get her to replace that phone for forever.
That's amazing.
It turns out that
actually
30 meters down face down on a concrete driveway leaves a couple of marks.
Yeah.
Right.
So, all right, there's a 7.
Upgrade to a 5A. What
7A's coming. 7A's coming.
She thought it was too big. She wanted the 6A because it was smaller.
Well, 6A's very good.
So 6A is a nice phone.
That's
good.
And getting the screen protector for it. Just saying.
I don't use those. I take my chances.
Yeah.
You live on the edge, Leo.
I live
get
on the
that
edge.
about you.
Yeah, I live on the edge. You know what I actually?
Well, plus
do?
you're also you use phones and move on. You know, she's been using a Pixel 4a for what 3 years? Or something?
A while,
a long time.
But what I do is the wallet thing. So it has a lid.
Yeah.
So the problem is if you dropped it when it was open, that doesn't protect it. But if it's closed, it's not gonna. The screen is somewhat. I like the idea of one device. You know, my wallet is in here.
Mm-hmm.
My cards are in here. My driver's
thieves
license.
like this a lot too because it's just one thing to take.
It's perfect for thieves. And now that I'm putting Google Passkeys on it, they have access to everything, which is a convenience. Just unlock my phone and you have me.
Yeah, right.
I've been in IoT hell this week. I mentioned this before on other shows, and I'm really looking forward to the day when I can actually move to a home with hot and cold running water, maybe electricity, but no internet, no phones, no nothing. Just I want not a cabin in the woods. I'm not going crazy.
Yeah.
But just
I can recommend to you if you go to certain areas of Mexico, you can own a home that has a toilet that you can't flush anything down, so you have to put stuff in a waste paper basket.
I know about that. That's that's the first thing I asked you, by the way, when you got your apartment is can you flush toilet paper? Because everywhere I've ever been in Mexico, you can't.
Oh no.
So no,
I live in civilization.
I didn't realize the Middle Ages has ended.
Sure. I mean, it's just a hole over like a pit, but it's fine. You know,
but you can put anything in it. That's
turns out it's a sinkhole. It goes down a long way.
You can put a car in there if you want. It's fine. You know.
Oh my God.
Nobody cares.
Oh my God. Where did we go wrong?
All right. Why don't you like them focusing on Surface as the brand rather than Microsoft as the brand? I mean, it's a surprise because
everyone's heard the brand Microsoft and no one's heard the brand Surface. And those who have heard the brand Surface are going to assume that those things are only for Surface.
Right. No,
I think that's the problem.
That's the summary, essentially. And all this time they've spent getting rid of Windows as the brand, Microsoft, and now they're going to go the other way on this. I don't know. Did Panos Panay have a good rock, paper, scissors or something? Like, how do you get this?
This is one of the weird things about this decision. The first couple of Surface devices had the Surface logo on them. And I think it might have been Surface Pro 3, if not right after that, where they switched it to Microsoft because that was the stronger brand. And it's kind of hard to argue with that. So now what Microsoft has said is we're going to consolidate our PC peripheral hardware business under the Surface brand. And I think that's a mistake.
No, it's the whole, they didn't want these products to sell well. This is a way to do it.
There's that too. There's also, I mean, Microsoft has a rich history with hardware. I think a lot of people don't appreciate this. Their first mouse was bundled with the MS-DOS version of Microsoft Word back in 1983.
Had to get a mouse into people's hands somehow, right?
Yep. And the IntelliMouse was so popular, they brought it back sometime in the past year and a half. The wired IntelliMouse, right, with the red light, that was a huge thing for them. Their ergonomic keyboards have always been very popular and even, bestsellers such as they are within that space. My favorite keyboard, the one I'm using right now, is a Microsoft Sculpt ergonomic keyboard and mouse. Are you telling me these things? Look, if this thing comes out and has a Surface logo on it, I couldn't care less. That's fine.
No, that's what this seems to say.
I hope so. I can't imagine they're going to take all of their hardware. I mean, this might be
this does benefit you because nobody else will buy it, and then you can get them because half the time you can't find the flipping things.
That's true. I've actually bought these things in bulk, and I have one extra one sitting in my closet. So it's really important to me.
I should go back to the Microsoft store on campus and see what else I can get.
I brought one to Mexico to make sure I have it there. I mean, I love these things. We'll see what happens. But anyway,
the great thing about a bad decision like this is they get another one out of it when they turn it back the other way again.
It's like new Coke, you're saying.
That's it. Yeah.
That's true. Yeah, we'll see. I just think that was the wrong decision.
It goes against everything else they've been doing.
Yeah. So it's not an IntelliMouse anymore. It's a Surface mouse.
Well, we don't actually know. So all we know is that they're going to go forward with the Surface brand. I would imagine some subset of existing Microsoft branded products will become Surface branded products, but I bet they use this as an opportunity to get rid of things.
Get rid of them.
All the line.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it backs up my decision to buy 6 IntelliMouses a few years ago.
Nice.
Never run out. Yeah. I don't want the ocean plastic mouse.
No.
And I definitely don't want the arc. That's. Do you have,
not unless you want
these?
carpal tunnel syndrome.
Yeah, it seems like a bad idea. I don't know.
Yeah, terrible mouse.
I've been buying gamer mouses. I mean, if you can turn the bloody blinky lights off, exactly.
Yeah,
they're quality built devices. They're too sensitive.
Yeah.
The main thing is, can you get in there and shut off the bloody LEDs? Once you do that, they're usable.
Sure.
I don't care because my keyboard tray is under the desk. I don't see it. But
I don't know what I'm going to do if they stop making
familiar
this
looking,
thing.
right?
That's vintage.
Yeah, that's the classic.
That's the one, and I think this is
so that was so popular.
Made, right?
They brought it back. They make those new now,
and it's like
with
$4.
a wire. Sure.
So they still make them. So maybe I should buy some more because I think I've gone through my stock. I literally bought half a dozen.
Yeah,
because I just like them so much, and I'm a lefty, so the fact that they're agnostic as to which hand you're using is good too.
Which is a big problem with mice, actually.
Look at that, the Pro IntelliMouse.
Yeah.
They still sell it. Oh, good.
Yeah,
good.
Back again.
Okay.
Now in 2 colors, you can have both black or white.
Black might be all right because white,
as long as the light is red.
Inevitably you've got
stuff.
Stains.
Is that what you call it? Okay.
My sweaty fingers.
It's stained with use.
Yeah.
IntelliMouse. So they still call it the IntelliMouse. That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I might buy a few more because it really has never been a better mouse.
No,
I think.
Buy it by the case.
Yeah, $30 on Amazon.
Yeah.
Last chance.
You're wrong.
Only 8 left in stock, says Amazon. You know, they say that on everything. I think they're lying.
It's lies.
I think they're lying. Yeah.
So can I point out as we switch to Xbox that you have nothing about the Activision acquisition here, and I do not understand how this could be. Like, what
we talked about it last week.
What planet are we on? I win the week before and the week before that. That's what makes this week weird.
I appreciate and I understand your angst, but I would say the first story is technically sort of about the acquisition because in the wake of the CMA blocking this acquisition,
and it is a block, not a concern. Like they just said no,
they said no,
which is crazy.
Microsoft has signed yet another 10-year agreement with a European cloud gaming platform. So in other words, we're concerned about local and we're concerned about cloud gaming. Well, this company isn't concerned. So they're from Spain, I think.
They are appealing it, right? They can appeal it.
Yeah, they are going to appeal it. Yeah.
So there is some, there is an audience for these moves.
What I like is the language Microsoft uses. So we've signed a 10-year agreement with this company no one's ever heard of called Enware. We will let them stream PC games built up by Xbox on its platforms, as well as Activision Blizzard titles after the acquisition closes.
Nice.
Nice.
You got to imagine this little company, and it's 4 guys in a garage, right?
Yep.
And then one day, Brad Smith called.
Exactly.
And said, hey,
what are we going to do?
I need you to sign something.
Yep. You're going to be in the news cycle. How does that sound?
Yeah. How does that feel for you?
That sounds pretty good.
Okay. You'd be doing me a favor.
Right.
That's a guy you want to do a favor.
Richard hasn't been around on Windows Weekly long enough for this to be tedious yet, but allow me to suggest.
Don't assume. Don't assume
that over time this will become tedious, and this in this case means Microsoft redesigning the Xbox dashboard yet again.
Oh boy.
This dates back. Actually, it dates back all the way to the 360 or the Xbox 360.
As long as this show's been on the air, they've been redesigning the Xbox dashboard.
Remember that one debuted with the blade interface that would slide over with a little shook sound,
got all
right?
excited. And
then Windows 8 came out and they started doing the panoramic stuff, which everyone hated. By the time we got to the Xbox One, the issue was that it's weird because they went to a Hyper-V kind of architecture, but there was this thing could play the most beautiful 3D games on earth, but the interface itself would just run like molasses. And during the life cycle of that console, they issued 3 revs to the console. They changed the dashboard, 100 times maybe, but never got it exactly right. But they gave up by the end. They just said, look, at this point, we're just focusing on reducing the steps it takes to perform every action. It was all they could do to make things happen faster.
You mean the thing we actually wanted to do with it?
Which is play a game, yeah. So in the same sense that I feel like the FedEx homepage should look like the Google homepage with a search box, and then it says do everything else down here in the corner. I feel that the Xbox should be here are the last 3 games you played, and here's a button for everything else.
Yes, thank you.
What are you doing on this console? Are we browsing around? We're looking at background images?
Thank you.
Well, here's the thing. So they released a new dashboard update. Again, I use the Xbox every day. I got to tell you, I don't really notice too many differences in the UI, like as little things, but
nobody cares, right?
Well, but
Like,
people do care
so
because
hard.
people were freaking out because this new design, the buttons were too big and you couldn't see the background image that well.
Oh,
So
okay, that's
this week,
important.
they've solved all of our problems. They've made the icons 85% of their previous size, and now you can see the background images. And I think they're going to get a ticker tape parade in Times Square.
Dodged a bullet there.
Yep. So that's happening.
Missed the foot entirely.
It's crazy. Anyway, this is what passes for drama in the Xbox.
Yeah,
Well,
you play the same game over and over again, Paul. So I wonder if you're an outlier. I mean, you would just want a big Call of Duty button. And that's that. But
I have been experimenting lately, I should say, and I feel like what they do with what's called the controller bar in Windows 10, which is part of the Xbox game bar, is the right approach, which is sort of what I just said, which was the last 3 games. Just show me the last.
Yeah.
Just,
So this is the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 games. But that's okay.
Well, yeah, but how many of them are actually your games, and how many of them are the one they want you to install?
No, I don't want ads in there. Yeah, that's a good point.
I don't know. I don't get it. To me, this is very straightforward. I turn this thing on. I want to play a game. I'm not looking at stuff. I'm not browsing. I'm, whatever. But I know sometimes, obviously, you're browsing the store, but the store could be one of those things. Like what, whatever. But in the same way that Windows 11 is, getting a little bit busy. I mean, I think they're trying to sell you stuff, right? You can look at the screenshot they chose. There's an ad for the Xbox controllers, right? In the lower right, they want you to spend more money. They don't want you just to play the stuff you bought. They want you to spend more money. So
this is becoming another variation of the widget morass.
Yeah. As long as I can see what celebrities were at whatever event in the corner, I'm going to be good. It doesn't have to take over the whole screen, but
where's my Donald Trump tile?
Exactly.
We need a Donald Trump tile. No, this is fine. So look, I think you're right. Nobody's going to even look at anything else, but just what's that first game on the list there? That's the one I played last. That's the one I want to start.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. I think
and
so.
the Xbox,
I think that's most
I'm not an expert, but doesn't it just leave unless you actively close the game, it's kind of always ready to go in the background, isn't it?
That's true. Yep. Yeah.
So
you turn the thing on, you should be able to get right back. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I know, because Harry Potter's been searching for something on my Xbox for the last 6 months. So I found it. I keep checking in. Find it yet, Harry? Nope. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I don't close games. Should I? Is
Close
that
it? No.
Is that a hygienic issue?
That's not a no.
That's not a thing. Okay.
No, it handles that for you.
Okay.
Yep. No, no worries on an Xbox. On a PC, you should close the game, but no, not on an Xbox. It's May 3rd today. So we've gotten some Xbox Game Pass and games with gold information for the month. We're down to 2 games now for games with gold. So those games are Star Wars Episode 1 Racer, which is probably pretty good. And then a game I've never heard of called Hoa, which I guess is that Hoa?
I believe that's pronounced Hua.
Yeah, Hoa. Yeah, there you go. That would be a way better game.
Yeah.
So, anyway, so if you have Xbox Live Gold or Xbox Game Pass of any kind, you can get those 2 games during this month for free. And then on the where is it? The Xbox, where I lost my link. Xbox game. Oh boy. Sorry. Let me get
Here
the
for you.
link here.
Redfall, Ravenlock, and more.
Yeah, Redfall. Yeah. So for Xbox Game Pass,
Redfall's the game everybody's complaining about.
Yeah, but you can get it for yes. So
it can break your system for free.
Yeah. I think I should look this up. Here's the thing. So Xbox, I'm sorry, what's it called? Redfall. This is the open world shooter vampire game. Has not gotten good reviews, I think would be the way to put it.
It looks, I've only seen screen captures and videos. It looks really broken, bad.
Oh, yeah, it's supposed to be. I wish it was, well, I guess it is. So I guess what you could do, fortunately, you can stream it with Xbox Cloud Gaming. So if you have an Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription, you could at least see what it's like without having to sit through the download.
That's actually a good idea.
And I feel like
they're going to get it.
I think they're going to fix it over time. I think they'll do right by it.
It's not like they could make it worse, right?
That's true. Yeah, that's absolutely true. The other game's not super interesting, although Shadowrun Trilogy is kind of interesting. But these are RPGs if you're into that kind of thing. Not to be confused with, there was a Shadowrun game. I don't know if anyone remembers this, but probably 2006, 2008, somewhere in there. It was a cross-platform game where you could actually play between Xbox, probably 360, I guess at the time, and PC.
Vista. No, in Vista. Yeah. I remember.
It was an okay game. It was a shooter. I think it was a third person shooter. If I remember.
Yeah, it was sort of first person, third person kind of.
It was okay.
You flip the back view.
Yeah, it was okay.
And then, they've always tried. Many times they've attempted to make these games that go between console and PC. It's not always a good idea. And
it's getting there. I would say it's getting there now. Finally, it took them 20 years, I guess.
It's hard. Games advantage one device form factor over another.
I will say Call of Duty does cross-plat now, which I don't like, that you can't turn it off. So it's Xbox, PlayStation 5, and PC.
Yeah.
And when there's a guy hopping around like a madman who's killing everybody, he's always on PC. And
he's always on PC. That's because he's got a better video card than any of you. Yeah. He's got a lower ping. Like and that's the usual.
I know. That's why we don't want it. And
or it's a control intensive game, right? There are games that are meant for keyboard.
Yep.
And and the controls when you get them into console devices are just wonky.
They do something to try to make it fair. And to me, fair means hand him a controller and we'll see what's up.
Yeah.
Because that will be a different story. But
I'm pretty happy being just a member of the PC Master Race. It's a lot simpler. And the Xbox consoles for playing Netflix.
Okay. Yep. Okay. That's fair. Not huge news, but Microsoft has an Xbox Game Pass friend referral offer, which is exactly what it is.
You played Xbox. You think you have friends?
Yeah. Right. I'll just say
why they can offer this.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Let's see if you have friends.
If I had friends, I wouldn't have to refer anything.
5 friends make it 5,000. It doesn't matter.
And then as part of their fiscal fourth quarter, so first quarter, calendar quarter, Sony revealed that they sold a record high 6.3 million PlayStation 5 units in the quarter.
Wow.
A total of 19.1 million in the fiscal year, and a total of 38.4 million since they launched. That's good. That's actually really good.
$3 billion worth of PS5s, man.
Yeah, and this is during a time frame when there were severe supply constraints.
Yeah, no kidding.
That's lessening, obviously, recently. Now, here's where things get a little, I don't think so, but they made a comment. I don't know, someone from PlayStation said, we're going to keep accelerating the penetration of PS5. We want the sell-in for this current fiscal year to be 25 million units, which would be incredible. And the highest ever for any PS console in history. And it's like, oh, okay, maybe. I can say with certainty that this thing will never be the best-selling PlayStation of all time. In fact, it won't even be in the top 2, but maybe not even the top 3. But you know what? Given the way things are going, and given that these consoles were launched in the middle of a pandemic, and then launched with severe constraints, like I said, pretty good. Plus, Microsoft hardware revenue fell 30% in the same quarter, by the way. Xbox hardware, I should say. So that's, we don't know the numbers for Microsoft, but they didn't fall 30% to more than 6.3 million units. I can tell you that. So Sony's doing pretty good, given all things considered.
Yeah, PlayStation 5 consoles in stock in Canada, Best Buy, $650 Canadian.
Wow. I think, boy, that's a lot of money, though. Well, I think what might put PS5 over the top, and this is not necessarily a problem that Microsoft has right now, one of the few, is those things are humongous.
Yeah, they are.
It's like the Dark Lord's Tower or something sitting over there next to your TV. They need to do a size shrunk, like a small.
They remember what they did with PlayStation, right? I mean, they got all of those units. They got smaller.
Yep.
I wonder
the other thing. They run
maybe-
hot too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's one of the reasons they're so big. They need more cooling surface. But I wonder also if the and when I look at the design, I think this is the case. The subconscious message is it's practically a PC,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's like
It looks like a piece of like Cylon hardware. You know,
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's very
but for-
strange.
I
It's-
kind
For
of
a guy who likes,
I've gotten used to it.
I like
Yeah.
I like rack mounting my gear, and that's like
Yeah.
anti-rack
Well, you
mount.
can't rack mount it, but
No, I like the style of the Xbox Series S and X. I think those are both really
I think
nice.
people who have them don't mind that
Yeah.
they are that big, or even having them show off and next to the TV.
Sure.
That's the statement pieces.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I honestly think that they would like to give you the impression you have a gaming PC
There you go.
that's just really looks like a
Yeah.
console.
You know, there's an easy way to do that. Get yourself a gaming piece.
Get a gaming PC.
Right. Right.
We are going to do the tip, the pick, and some brown liquor. Finally, an Irish you recommend.
Oh, I have plenty of Irish I like.
Oh,
but
okay.
the Irish, I really enjoyed assembling the Irish story, but let's get there.
Yeah.
How quick would
yeah,
the
yeah.
Canadian whiskey version of this be, do you think? About 3 minutes?
All of them get shorter now that you know sort of the fundamentals, man. But I think I'm going to do the Canadian one in the context of prohibition because it affected so much.
Tell the
Certainly-
story of George the Sixth. Why don't you?
There you
Yeah.
go.
Start,
We'll
start
go
with the
there.
Georges.
Yeah.
All right, but
you know, every time I go up to the coast, I drive past Smuggler's Cove, and
Yeah,
Smuggler's
yeah.
Cove was about smuggling booze.
Yeah.
Like,
Nice.
that's
Oh,
what
yeah.
it was about.
I like
We
that
have-
that's a place where you live and not a place that's in Disney World.
There you go. Yeah.
we have a local family restaurant. It's been there forever. Well, literally, because it has a plaque out front that says, "This was a speakeasy during Prohibition." And when you go to the bar, it's way in the back, kind of hidden. And I can imagine a door there that you'd. What's the password? It was a speakeasy. It was the place you went in Petaluma if you wanted to drink in the Prohibition era, the 30s.
Mm-hmm.
Our show today, there's no prohibition against you, my friend, you becoming a member of the fabulous club Twit. We would love you to join. Originally when we created Club Twit, $7 a month. There's an Irish whiskey for you. $7 a month.
I was just confused by that as well.
Our thought was people want ad-free versions of the shows, and we'll give it to them ad-free, tracker-free. You get a special feed just for you that has, whatever shows you want. But then we realized there could be more to Club Twit. We thought, well, let's set up a Discord that's dedicated to members, because that was kind of an easy feature to implement. And that turned out to be kind of, in my mind, one of the best things about Club Twit was this place we could all hang out and talk about HoloLens in the field. I don't know what that picture is. Is that a HoloLens? I don't know what that is. Anyway, but animated GIFs, conversations, not just about the shows, but about every topic under the sun that geeks might be interested in. Beer, wine, and cocktails, you bet. Coding, comics, crypto, current affairs, and that's just the C's. Hacking and hardware and travel and tech, and it's my favorite social community. I really love this social network because it's all Club Twit members. We do put together events just for Club Twit. Alex Wilhelm's Ask Me Anything is May 11th coming up, just a few days. Of course, we have shows that are only in the club, like Home Theater Geeks, The Return of Scott Wilkinson. We had to cancel that show because the audience wasn't big enough to support advertising, and we couldn't afford to do it for free. But once Club Twit started up, that gave us the revenue to do things like this. That's where we launched This Week in Space. That's where we have Hands on Mac. Paul does Hands on Windows there. It is a really, this is going to be a fun one, by the way, coming up. They're starting to work on this. After hours, we're going to do this at the Twit studio on a Friday evening. Ant will be hosting, which means there will be brown liquor. And everybody's just going to kind of hang out. That's going to be pretty amazing. I'm looking forward to that. Rod Pyle's going to have a fireside chat in July. So we do these events. Thank you to Ant Pruitt, our community manager. We also have, as I said, special shows that don't appear anywhere else, and the ad-free version of the shows. That's a lot for $7 a month. $1 less than a blue check on Twitter. I think that's a pretty good deal. And I want to say you'll also get that warm and fuzzy feeling that you're helping us keep the lights on and keep doing what we love to do. And so it's a way of you showing, your support for the network. If you're interested, there's family plans, there's corporate plans, there's a yearly membership, and there's the basic membership, which is $7 a month. They all basically cost that amount. Go to twit.tv/clubtwit and help us keep doing what we love doing, and I hope you love listening to. And we thank all of our Club Twit members for making this possible. All right, time for the back of the book. Paul Thurrott starts it with our tip of the week.
Yeah, the hands-on Windows podcast that I do is in many ways a video version of the Windows 11 field guide, which is kind of interesting and fun. And I wanted to do some video components, and Lisa contacted me. It was good timing and all that kind of stuff. But I had just written most of the command line section of the book, and the final chapter in that is a tool called WinGet, which is the Windows Package Manager, which we talked about last week. Now, command lines are not for everybody, wimps, but fortunately, there's a really good GUI front end to WinGet, which is creatively called WinGet UI. And it literally does everything that WinGet does. So if you're interested in this technology and this idea being a place where you can find, download, install, manage, update, and then uninstall if you want apps on your computer, this is kind of a good app. It also works with third-party, or I should say other package managers like Chocolatey on Windows, so you can add multiple sources if you want. But I like it as a front end to WinGet and what that does, and so that's pretty cool. One of the things that it does, a couple of things that you can't do or can't easily do with WinGet from the command line, and one of them is you can actually keep everything up to date. So you can actually use this thing you run it. It runs in the background, checks on whatever schedule. The default is actually once an hour, which might be a little aggressive. And you can keep all of the packages that you're monitoring up to date, regardless of where they're from, which is kind of a neat thing. I mean, obviously, Microsoft Store apps have their own updating process. A lot of apps have their own internal updating process. Like Chrome and web browsers do that. But this is one way to do it from a central location. I will tell you, since I wrote this article, that the first week doing this is going to be a little painful because depending on what you're doing with your PC, you might have many packages, as they call them, apps, on your system that need to be updated, and you're going to get a lot of notifications. But you can kind of go through it and determine, which require admin access or which you don't want to work through the system, et cetera. So I'm only a few days into it. Honestly, it's working pretty well. So
this is not from Microsoft. This is somebody's.
No, it's a third party. Yeah, it's just
Marty Clement.
Yeah. But it does everything you can do in WinGet. It's just a graphical front end. It's nice.
Yeah, and because it's not from Microsoft, it supports Scoop and Chocolatey too, which is great.
That's right. Yeah. I would be shocked if Microsoft. A lot of people sort of think this is what the Windows Store should become.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be surprising to me if they did something around those lines. But
the discovery alone probably makes it worthwhile because it's not easy necessarily to figure out what WinGet supports.
Well, so for me, for example, one of the issues with WinGet is you have to check every once in a while and see if there are any updates. And then if there are, you have to say, okay, I want to update, I want to upgrade, right? But the command line you have to type in to make sure that it actually gets everything is a little convoluted. It's easy enough to type WinGet upgrade. It's not hard. WinGet upgrade all will work some of the times, most of the times maybe. But if you really want to make sure it gets everything, there's actually an additional flag or parameter or whatever it's called, option, which I don't know off the top of my head, but that's the problem, right? Like I actually want this to be a fairly obvious thing to do. So this is one way to do that. It's just kind of just keep it happening in the background. It's not a bad idea. So that's cool. This is not really related to the Windows world per se, but Leo referenced this earlier, but Google added Passkeys support to consumer Google accounts today. I'll just say I have installed it, so to speak, or added it to my Gmail account just to kind of test it out. I do want to use this with my Workspace account that's coming soon. To me, the big disparity between Google and Microsoft accounts over the past year and a half, whatever, is that Microsoft accounts can be passwordless out of the box now, which is nice. And you can also, even if you don't remove your password, you never actually have to type in a Microsoft account password. If you're using an authenticator app or whatever, you can type in you're signing into Windows or an online service, whatever it is, type in your email address, sends a code to your phone, you select the right code, you do the authentication. It works. Google account, you have to type in your Google account username and password. It's like, what is this, 1999? Like, it's crazy. So I assume and expect that passkey support will mean that I will no longer have to type passwords on my Google account. We'll see. I mean, just installed it today.
I set it up this morning. I woke up and started reading Twitter at 4 a.m. and I immediately
as one does. Yep.
set up. Sorry, did I say Twitter? I meant Mastodon.
Whatever it was. Yep.
Immediately set it up, and so it's a little weird because
it is a little weird. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, basically, my iPhone. So what they did is they store a key in the cloud.
You have to kind of configure it on each device once, I think, is the weirdness to it, right?
Well, if you're using iCloud, then all your iOS devices get configured. But you want to do it with something that does biometric ID.
Yes, that's
so
right.
So from now on, my login is just my Face ID on my iPhone or my
which
touch.
is exactly what you. Yeah. And if and I know Richard uses YubiKeys, it works. With
I
that.
use YubiKeys. Yeah.
So it's kind of like having a YubiKey, except you don't do a password at all. It's like if the YubiKey did everything.
Well, I just my point is this is how Microsoft accounts have worked for a long time,
right?
And it's always been frustrating to me on the Google side that it doesn't work that way. But I'm thinking now
Google's
it does.
had single sign-on a la Microsoft Authenticator. This is different. This is another.
Yeah.
I mean, it's weird. The thing is, I don't get logged out of Google very often.
See, I actually do.
Oh, you do. So this would be a real advantage. And of course, people point out, well, what if I lose the phone with a YubiKey? I'm sure, Richard, you have one at home or in a safe that's a backup.
I have several.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. So you got to understand, this is early days. So this thing is in addition to whatever other forms of authentication you've set up already on your Google account, right? So if you lose your phone, well, actually, you couldn't get an SMS or a 2FA code, I guess. But I mean, you still have you can still use like a backup. I send a code to my other email account kind of thing. Like,
you're going to want to make sure you've got these kind of backup.
You should already have that set up, frankly. But yeah. Right now, it's another way to do it. Like, one of the things you can do on a Microsoft account that I did on a secondary account, but not on my primary account, is you can actually just remove the password. Like, you don't have to have a password on your Microsoft account. It's not needed.
Yikes.
On my primary account, it's still there, but I never use it. And regardless, even if I were to type it in, I'd still have to do some kind of a 2FA somewhere.
Yeah.
I just like the fact that I never have to type it in. All you need to know is your email address. It's the best. And I'm hoping, like I said, I just added it, so I need to really kind of test it. But I'm hoping that this does this for Google. So finally, and here we go into our passwordless future.
Finally.
Yeah, the fact that Google's kind of doing this is so obviously is, I think, going to help Passkeys, because other sites have it in theory, but I think this will kind of make it. This is the beginning of a mainstream Passkeys,
I think so.
which is, I hope, going to happen. Yep. There are some good questions though about the whole thing, to be honest with you.
There sure are.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be a process, but I can't test it super effectively until it's on my Workspace account. But that's if you use Workspace, the problem. That's what everything happens like that. All right, and then the app pick of the week. This is kind of an oddball one because it's they literally dumped Bing and now it's a pick. So Brave Search, I think some 10% ish of their search results were coming out of Bing, and now Brave Search has gotten rid of that, and they are kind of marketing it as the first search service that's 100% independent of big tech, because most search services have to use some combination, especially for a smaller player like a DuckDuckGo or whatever. You have to have some combination of search results coming from some of the big players. And they've evolved to the point where the results are good. You can actually opt into something where there's a fallback, and I think it falls back to Google, where if literally there aren't enough search results from them directly, it is Google. If you let it, you have to opt into this. It will actually then use Google, and then it will anonymize the stuff and push it back through Brave Search, so it doesn't, attach to you like an ad sucking creature of some kind. So okay, I will say I use Brave, the browser. I don't like Brave Search enough to use it personally yet. It's something I will continue experimenting with. I know it's been improving pretty dramatically. I have a couple of friends who actually swear by DuckDuckGo, if you can believe that.
Mm-hmm.
So people do this stuff, but
it's Bing,
it's out there.
right?
No. That's the point. It's not.
Oh, it's not anymore.
They dropped. Yeah, there's no Bing. It's Bing free. So if that's your kind of, if that's what you're looking for and you don't want Google, this is definitely an option. So I can't speak to its quality.
So I understand Brave isn't. Is DuckDuckGo still Bing or no?
Yeah, they use Bing.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, that's what I meant. Yeah.
Yep. Sorry.
Interesting.
Yeah. And I use Neva, which is also very Bing heavy. Bing
is it really? Oh, that's interesting.
So
yeah.
Bing's not bad. I don't mind having Bing.
Yeah. No,
thing.
actually,
Most important is I need good search results.
Well, Leah will probably appreciate this, especially. There's a part of me that likes that this kind of thing exists. I think these kind of smaller, preferably open, whatever it is, solutions that don't rely on the three biggest companies in the world is maybe a healthy thing just for the ecosystem.
I completely agree. I mean, the fact that Google's so dominant in search gives them immense power. They essentially determine for everybody what the internet is.
Yeah,
that's
what
right.
you see.
Yeah,
and
the
that's
ultimate
not.
gatekeeper.
I don't want to give that to any
I agree.
company. That's crazy. But that's
but you know what?
we
At
are.
least the regulators are stopping that Activision Blizzard thing because that's the real problem in our
right
industry.
there, yeah.
So
Our
at least
games are
our
safe.
priorities are all straight. Everything's good.
Yep.
I'm not bitter.
Not at all.
Not at all.
I default to bitter, but that's fine.
Run as Radio this week is all about AI.
Yeah, for better or worse. I mean, this is basically a phone call we were having anyway and decided we better ought to record it.
Right, just record it.
We were just I have this guy on the show this week. His name's
what is it?
Paul something.
Yeah.
Anyway, we've been debating on this show and elsewhere about the impact of large language models. I'm being slowly driven into doing talks on this stuff too, and I'm not happy about it. Yeah. But funny when you start pulling all the bits and pieces together. So we had the conversation. It's like, well, what is this going to do for us IT folk? How is it going to impact us? Where is it going to appear? I think we ended up spending a lot of time more than anything on the Copilot for M365, just because that affects most workers or will affect most workers, which means it's certainly going to be a big impact on the sysadmins trying to administer and keep control of things. I wish we could have talked more about the security side of Copilot, but there's nothing to talk about except the fact, sort of this acknowledgement that most security people in most shops are part-timers. And this is exactly the kind of tool they needed, something that gives them guidance for what should I be paying attention to? Where are we at right now? What do I implement next? Like all of that, I thought was very compelling.
So if you're looking for a liquor-free version of Windows Weekly, then that would be. And notice, by the way, it's only 38 minutes. So
yeah. which is long for a run as,
Is it really?
The fat.
You
cut me off. I was going to keep going.
Oh man, yeah. Paul's used to a lot more room.
Yeah, I'm like, I need a bigger runway than this.
Skosh more room in my podcast.
just flying along.
That's why we made Windows Weekly.
Yeah, it's a fun conversation.
Runasradio.com, show 878. Featuring some guy named Paul. And I think we should talk about Redbreast. We were, my brother-in-law, Uncle Joe, is a Irish whiskey guy. And I actually kind of thought Irish whiskey wasn't good until he gave me some. I said, this is good. I love Middleton. And so we wanted to give him a gift on his birthday a few months ago. Lisa went to the BevMo, as one does, and they said, you should take a look at this Redbreast.
Yep.
And it was great.
Yeah. And I'm going to tell you how it was different from other age-recognized whiskeys. But we need to go back because the Irish will be the first to tell you they invented this stuff.
That's true.
Now,
That's
remembering that all of these cereal products are actually products from the Mideast, going back to the Assyrian Empire and the Fertile Crescent and all that good stuff. So actually, the strongest evidence seems to be somewhere in the 10th to 12th century, monks traveling back from the Mediterranean brought not really early, but alembic stills, the simplest kind of still made of copper that was good for distilling alcohol from grain in very small scales. And so that kind of kicked off the business that exists in Ireland first. But there's lots of hooks and twists around that. So the first licensed distillery in the Western world, 1608, in the northern part of Ireland, in the district called Bushmills, And that location still has a distillery on it. It's obviously burned down a couple of times along the way. It's called the Old Bushmills Distillery. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean they were making whiskey then. Whiskey was made the whole time. I mean, the bottom line was people who had excess grain and needed to do something with it would use these little stills to make an alcohol from that. It was a good way to store those remains and have some results. But the original sort of moonshine of Ireland is called poitín, Poitin, poitín. And it is jet fuel, right? It's a clear alcohol before you've done any aging in barrels and so forth. So inexpensive to make, simple, and it's so stunningly common, and arguably still is to some degree, that it's like everybody had a grandma who made poitín. Now, and so in 1608, when they did the original licensing, this was the idea that now it was going to be a taxable product. And so they had this idea of Parliament versus poitín whiskey. And so naturally, once you're going to play taxation games, you get rules in place. And so by 1661, poitín is outlawed. No personal alcohol anymore. I come to appreciate, as I've been assembling this history, to realize that as the Industrial Revolution started applying to alcohol and it became a bigger business, all of the experiments in taxation, they happened here. Everything that you can do wrong with taxing, this whole, taxation without representation and so forth, yeah, this all happened here. So, fast forward 100 or so something years, in the late 1700s, there are literally thousands of distilleries in Ireland. They've declared them all, but everybody's making whiskey their own way. They're all different. There's no standards of any kind. And so new rules are brought in place. Now, to be clear, this is the English trying to control the Irish, right? And a part of this entire dynamic is the conflict between the English and the Irish. And so while there may have been 1,200, 1,300 distilleries in 1779, by as soon as these regulations started to be put in place, the distilleries start vanishing. They don't actually vanish. They just stop talking about them. The poitín is still well underway. And in 1785, in order to come up with a new way to tax whiskey, the English instituted a tax on malted barley. And so now you have the rules where you have to malt a particular way. It takes a certain amount of space, so it's always obvious. And based on the weight of the malted barley you pay a tax on top of that. And the Irish response to that, it was to use less malted barley. In fact, one of the distinctive aspects of Irish whiskey to this day is that they use both a combination of both malted barley and unmalted barley. So they didn't germinate it. And that really comes from this taxation behavior 150 years ago. 250 years ago. So, and funny, oddly enough, that law, when written, said, oh, by the way, don't use unmalted barley. Yeah, they didn't worry about that part, not at all. So by the early 1800s, 1821 or so, they were down to less than 30 distilleries left in Ireland. The industry is largely being strangled. It's gone completely underground. And so the taxation rules are sort of lifted to allow things to expand. And that takes us to the most seminal event, I would argue, in whiskey making as a whole. And we've talked about this previously in the Scottish sections, when Aeneas Coffey developed the coffee still. So he was actually a whiskey taxman. So he was able to observe a lot of distilleries as he was collecting duties and taxes in lots of different places. And so there were already versions of column stills at the time, but he came up with a column still that was very, very heat efficient. And it's amazing to me to think in terms of, this is 1830. So like James Watt's original steam engine is only a few decades old at this point. Like the industrialization of alcohol making is still pretty new. And I mean, we talked about it a little bit when we were doing the Scottish section about how important the coffee still was. But the big thing was not only that it was continuous production, that you're always feeding wort into the top and alcohol's coming out of the other side, but that it used steam for heating. The alcohol explosions largely came from the fact that you were putting fire underneath of a pot of mash that was being turned into alcohol vapors, and then sometimes they catch fire and big bad things happen.
Possibly go wrong.
And so one of the key aspects of of Aeneas's coffee still was that the boiler's in a different building, and you're piping the steam into this double column still assembly to safely heat it at a controlled rate and to be able to extract the alcohol efficiently and continuously. So here's the kicker. Aeneas comes up with this unbelievably efficient, continuously running still that maintains thermodynamics effectively, makes a better, higher distillate alcohol with less effort. The Irish won't use it. It goes totally against the style of the way they're making whiskey. They do pot distillation, where you have a large copper pot, sort of pear shape, that you load the mash in the wort into, and then heat slowly and up, and it refluxes along the walls of the copper still until eventually out the lye arm into the condenser. You know who does use it? The Scottish. The Scottish build tons of them under license. And they start distilling with the thing that the coffee still does brilliantly is it distills grain rather than malt. So they start cutting their whiskey 50, 60% grain alcohol, which drops the price by 75%. This is the original blended whiskeys. And so they dominate the market. It's the least expensive whiskey. It still tastes good. It's made incredibly efficiently. It takes less time to produce. And so the Irish market is now being crushed to the point where the Irish decide we need to fix this with branding. And up until this point, whiskey was spelt without an E. In fact, the branding exercise in Ireland that fought back against this was adding the E.
They added an Internet Explorer E. That was their solution.
Yeah, that was it.
They added the E, and that was the key. You know, they're like, we're not going to fix our process. We're not going to come up with a more efficient way to make whiskey. We're going to add an E.
That's really funny. I was wondering about that spelling difference. That's hysterical.
So that's the spelling difference comes out of this. The Scots starting to dominate the market, which they will do again. But because the Irish are doing well, they are selling into the UK. They also selling extensively in America until the World War One. The reels really come off in World War One. It's not just the war itself, which is the original industrialized war. Like we've been talking about this growth and industrialization of whiskey making, but then you have the industrialization of war, followed immediately after the war by the Irish War of Independence, where they fight back and get their independence from England, which they succeed in doing. It takes a few years, but also closes that market for them in the process, so they can't sell Irish whiskey into the UK anymore. Followed by U.S. prohibition, 12 years of no selling alcohol in the U.S. So once again, the Scottish market gets completely devastated. The Scottish market grows because the Scots happily learned how to smuggle in a big old hurley, and they build out. And again, we talked about this in the Scottish section, where there were groups of folks that actually started buying ships and dropping alcohol off in Canada and getting across the borders in various ways. And so at the grimmest period of the Irish whiskey manufacturing period is by the 1960s. So post-war post-World War II recovery, and there are really only two functional distilleries left anywhere in Ireland. There's the old Middleton distillery, which is actually the Jameson distillery outside of Cork, and there's the Bush's distillery up in the north.
So have you been to both those?
I have.
Yeah, I've been to the Jameson one.
Yeah. And so there's actually three entities. Jameson makes a deal with the Cork distillers and John Powers, and they form one entity. It's like to stay alive. They call it the Irish Distillers Group. And pooling their money, they decide to build one new distillery. This is how they're gonna make all the whiskeys in the same place, operating more efficiently. And that is what we now know as the New Middleton Distillery, which opened in 1975. And at the time was one of the largest distilleries ever built in the world. Where typical pot stills at the commercial grade in Scotland were 5,000 to 6,000 liters. And today your sort of lightweight, small, custom boutique maker will be about 1,500 liters. These were 75,000 liter pot stills. These pot stills they spanned across multiple floors in a building. They were absolutely titanic. But they were also now a monopoly. right? There was one group running the distillery. They made a bunch of different products. They were now buying up the bankrupted brands of the other there was plenty of remains of distilleries around. In fact, there still are to this day, but they would scoop up the various brands. And this is where you get all of these different names like Redbreast and Green Spot and they all got consolidated under this Irish Distillers, which ultimately was bought by the French group Pernod, the same guys who owned Chivas Regal. But coming into the 80s, whiskey becomes hipper. And I would actually lay this at the feet of the Americans more than anything. You know, when we talk about the wave upward of whiskey, the distinctive thing that makes whiskey is that you take a clear distillate alcohol and you age it in wood. But wood is expensive and hard to come by until the Americans start making a lot of bourbon and they institute an important rule, which is you only get to use the barrel once. And so America, with its huge amounts of oak forests, is now making tons of barrels, using them once, and they need a market for them. And the Scots buy them, and so do the Irish. And so all whiskey industry ascends because of this explosion in availability of barrels. And so by the 1980s, we start to see new distilleries opened up, like the Cooley Distillery, which is up in the Northeast and makes a number of well-known products. And then in 1997, they actually officially legalized poitín. It's essentially what we know in America as White Dog, just unbarreled grain whiskey. And so by 2013, so literally now we're in the modern times already, we're up to 5 registered distilleries now. There's the Kilbeggan Distillery, which I had an opportunity to tour. The original was opened in 1757. And shut down in 1957, and then now is reopened in 2007. We're starting to get their lines up again. The New Middleton Distillery, which is still there, but has been expanded. These are the guys who make Jameson, Telemetry, Redbreast, all of the spots. That's the green, the yellow, the blue, and the red. Out in the West Coast, Dingle had a distillery. Cooley, which is in the Northeast, that's Connemara, and they reopened the old Bushmills Distillery in the north of Belfast. Literally in the Bushmills County. The declaration of the standards of Irish whiskey only came in 2016. So they've only really modernized their approaches to things by saying, okay, it has to be matured and distilled in Ireland, whether that doesn't matter whether it's Republic or North Ireland, same diff, that you have to have some kind of malt, although there's a bunch of ways to do that. They talk about saccharification, fermented by yeast, distilled to no higher than 94.8%, which is bloody high. Only water and perhaps caramel color added to it. At least 3 years in wooden casks. Finished ABV of 40% or above, and with a few different varieties defined. So what makes Irish whiskey distinct? Now, in the earlier days of Irish whiskey, they would use whatever grain they could land their hand on. I have seen mash bills that had like oats in it. But today, the defining aspect of Irish whiskey is for what they typically call pot still whiskey, is a combination of malted barley and unmalted barley. That is distilled in a pot still with reflux, and then is aged in wooden barrels for at least 3 years. Although typically won't have an age statement on it, although the same rules, the age statement has to be that much, but it's also distilled 3 times. So where the Scots are malted barley only, twice distilled, the Irish are malt and unmalt, triple distilled, but otherwise aged in barrels. Well, by the way, in the regulations for 2016, they say the E is traditional, but not required. So, yeah, typical of these kinds of whiskeys is the Redbreast. I think Redbreast 12 represents, it looks like a Scottish whiskey, but the distinction is it's 50-50 of malted and unmalted barley. I mean, why did this make a difference? Malted barley means you've germinated it, right? You've essentially used the plant itself to begin to break down the sugars. And the way that barley does that is with an enzyme called amylase. So when you add water and a bit of time and temperature, the amylase comes out of the seed and begins to break the carbohydrates into simpler sugars, which makes it easier to extract. unmalted barley, it's still combined that way. But there's other ways for us to induce sugar release. You can do it with heat and pressure. So you can cook the grain a bit, and that will help break the sugar down. You can also introduce other enzymes that help break those sugars down. The difference is in the flavor. You get a different kind of grain flavor from malted barley than you get from malted barley. Either way, you're lifting a lot of that flavor out because you do tend to distill it quite a bit higher than the Scottish distillery processes do. And then you're aging it typically for less time. It is unusual to have age statements on Irish whiskeys. Most Irish whiskeys you see don't have it. Redbreast being one of the exceptions. That 12 is the youngest thing in their bottle when they actually bottle it. You can find this in America today fairly easily. It is about $55, and it is aged in a combination of bourbon and Oloroso sherry casks. So very much a Speyside style whiskey, just made with the Scottish pattern of a mixture of malt and unmalt and triple distillation.
And it's quite good.
Delicious.
I might add.
This is possibly only the second one you've recommended I can buy in the state of Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
That might be true. Yeah, they have this in Bevmo. I know that. Yeah.
Yeah, no. And I try to make sure I'm finding a whiskey that people have a chance to buy. I think I can always pick you a whiskey you can't find.
Right.
Years ago, Carl and I were doing a .NET Rocks tour across Ireland, as you do. And we were in Dublin. And we were meeting a friend of his, a musician friend of his, and he had brought some Angel's Envy, some American bourbon with him to give to his friend as a gift. Nice thing to do. And we arrived early, as we are prone to do when it involves a bar, and found ourselves some Redbreast 12. So we were very happy sipping away at that. And his friend arrived, and we gave him the gift, and we had a nice chat. And he's sipping his Guinness and watching us out of the corner of his eye. He was very concerned, actually. And finally, after an hour or two of us steadily drinking Redbreast, he says, "Well, God bless you, boys." Walk? Yeah. Bless you, boys. I don't know how you drink the brown liquor like that. And it's like, I'm not sure what you mean. He says, "Oh, no, I can't drink the brown liquor. It makes me fight."
I love it.
And I'm like, "Well, give us back the Angel's Envy." So, "Oh, will not." Right? Now, I'll take it home.
Yep. That's
very
great.
Nice. Yeah. Redbreast. It says right on the label, single.
I feel like Irish whiskey is. What that means. I feel like you can almost always tell when a whiskey is an Irish whiskey. Does that?
Oh yeah.
Well, especially if it's a pot still whiskey, because they'll have that grain flavor to it, which is fairly distinct.
Yeah, it has a distinct.
There is a declared version of Irish whiskey called a single malt, which is straight malted barley, and then there are you'll see single grain, which means they're not using any malt, or they're using a minimal amount of malt. The days of complex mash bills seem to have gone by. I remember reading about these years ago where they were doing grain and wheat and rye and oats and so forth, but mostly that's been eliminated by just barley processing is simpler. There's lots of challenges when you start to mix mash bills that complexly, and corn's not that cheap in Ireland, so it's not a great grain to choose the way it is in America, where corn is very, very cheap.
Ladies and gentlemen, you have received wisdom from the man, the myth, the Scotch drinking legend, Mr. Richard Campbell. RunAsRadio.com for the Run As Radio podcast and his other show, .NET Rocks, from beautiful Coquitlam, British Columbia. From Macungie,
that this weekend.
Macungie, PA, down the road from Murder Dogs. It's Paul Thurrott.
Bad Dogs. Oh, speaking of which, they're going to stay open.
New owner.
Yay!
They sold it. How much does a hot dog stand go for in Macungie, I wonder?
Probably $1,700. I don't know.
It's a really good hot dog stand.
It is.
Paul Thurrott is at Thurrott.com, THURROTT.com. Become a premium member. You get some great extra material. I highly recommend it. He also has a good book called The Field Guide to Windows 11, including Windows 10 wrapped in at leanpub.com. Also his new book, Windows Everywhere, which is the history of Windows and Windows languages and all that. It's a really interesting read. Two great books. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Richard. We do the show every Wednesday, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern Time. That's 1800 UTC. You can watch or listen live as we do it at live.twit.tv. But if you're doing that, you should chat live with us. There's an open to all IRC, irc.twit.tv. Your web browser will work just fine. You can also, if you have a Club Twit membership, join us in the Discord. After the fact, on-demand versions of the show available at the website, twit.tv/dubdub. You can also click there on that page. You'll see there's a YouTube link. That's the dedicated YouTube site for Windows Weekly. There's also links to various podcatchers and an RSS link, too, if you want to add it to your podcast client. I would do that. That way you get it automatically as soon as it's done on Wednesday afternoon. Paul, Richard, thank you so much. Great show. And we'll see you next week, all you winners and dozers on Windows Weekly. Bye-bye.
Hey, folks, I'm Ant Pruitt. And what do you get your favorite tech geek that has everything? A Club Twit gift subscription, of course. Twit podcasts keep them informed and entertained with the most relevant tech news podcasts available. With a Club Twit subscription, they get access to all of our podcasts ad-free. They also get access to our members-only Discord, access to exclusive outtakes, behind the scenes, and special content such as AMAs, which I just love hosting, plus exclusive shows such as Hands on Mac, Hands on Windows, and the Untitled Linux Show. Purchase your Geeks gift at twit.tv/clubtwit, and it will thank you every day.